Welcome to the Post-Game Spread podcast. For those of you that have already been with us, welcome back. For our new listeners, let me introduce myself, welcome you, and explain what this podcast is all about. My name is Blake Helm. I'm a firefighter, veteran, and former pro baseball player myself. I had a wild journey through baseball that, to put it in a nutshell, let's just say I had some tools and some promise. I played some D1 baseball. I had 5 surgeries in college. Could not stay on the field, and it was an absolute battle to come back every time. After college ended for me, I ended up walking away and joining the military. I was done with baseball. Served my 4 years in the military, and towards the end, I kept having these dreams that I had to finish this. I had to have my vision quest and play pro baseball, and that to speed this up, I was playing wiffle ball with some buddies. Turned into playing in a men's league, turns into playing for the U.S. military all-star baseball team, turns into trying out and making a reality show with Cal Ripken as the host called The Player that never aired. The winner was supposed to get a contract with the Orioles, and that turned into bouncing around indie ball with mixed results, some good, some bad for a couple years, and then it all ended with a fastball dotting me in the temple, and I had post-concussion syndrome for 6 months. So an absolute crazy ride, and through all of that, I learned a lot about myself, a lot about life, and how to overcome. And I had a chance to go on my buddy's podcast a year or two ago and tell my story. And it was so therapeutic and fun and awesome to give thanks to all these people that helped me along the way. I think baseball is such a great teacher of life and life lessons if you pay attention. So from there, I thought, I want to do my own podcast. I want to give back to the baseball community in my own way and be a part of it. And I want to help guys tell their stories, their unique stories and their journeys through baseball and what they learned along the way, and help them, pass along their knowledge. Because what good is knowledge if we don't pass it along? So I've been going back and talking with former pros with interesting stories, talking with their parents, their friends, their teams, their coaches, their managers to get context, to get clips, to get quotes. And it's really been a celebration of someone's career and what they went through. It's somewhere between podcast and biography. It's positive. It's a celebration. I think we really have something here that's special, and I'd love for it to grow organically, whereas one door opens another door, and we keep opening up to new guests here. So I would love for this to reach, pros with great stories, big leagues, minor league guys. So if anyone is out there listening, you think you have a great story, or someone you played with has a great story, and you want to get in touch with us and be a part of this, be on it, my email is thepostgamespread@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from people. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. Now we're going to cut to a few minutes of local ads from sponsors that support the show in Springfield, Illinois. We are also brought to you by Sheehan & Sheehan Lawyers, located at 1215 South 4th Street, Suite A, 217-544-0701. Go see them for all your adoption, ag law, business commercial law, estate planning, real estate planning, and personal injury needs. I'm talking Pat Sr., Pat Jr., and Willie. I grew up playing ball with Willie. Pat Jr. was a heck of a ball player at SHG, SCI, and the U of I. We appreciate you guys. It brings me great pleasure to announce that we are now brought to you by Iron Palm Coffee, located in the parking lot at Soccer World, Lawrence and Durkin, right off Veterans Parkway. This is a long time coming. This is a good friend of mine, a very inspirational friend of mine. He's had this vision for years, finally coming to fruition. He fell in love with the coffee business many years ago because it connects people. It brings people together. Personally, I am forever in debt to this guy and his story. It's inspirational. He's been through a ton. I think he's a warrior and a champion of a person. So go see Iron Palm Coffee in the parking lot at Soccer World. Put some iron in your blood. We appreciate you, Iron Palm Coffee. We are also brought to you by Christ the King Men's Club. This was facilitated by my good buddy John Chisholm. We grew up playing baseball together. Played on the Flame together, played high school ball. He played some college ball at Spoon River. This is a great organization. They put on tons of events. They raise money for the school. They put it back into the academics, into the sports. They do bourbon raffles, breakfast with Santa, mother-son dances, silent auctions. It's all positive. It's all good. We really appreciate you, Christ the King Men's Club. Thank you. We are also brought to you by Jared Washko of Washko Strength and Speed, located at 3604 North Peoria Road, 217-899-3233, washcostrengthandspeed.com. I think Jared is the premier trainer for youth athletics in the Springfield area, specifically baseball and softball. He is on it, from his training modalities to his throwing programs to speed to getting stronger to getting faster. The proof is in the pudding. Jared cranks out athletes at high levels that go on to the collegiate levels. Go see Jared for all your strength and speed needs. Bo Hart, how are we doing, bud?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I got a question for you.
What's that?
Are you sick of me yet? Be honest.
No, not at all. If we weren't recording anything and documenting this since I was, 12 years old, then yeah, I might be sick of you. But no, I'm kidding. This is a win-win for everybody. Don't worry. We're doing great.
This has been incredible. This is part 4. Everyone, welcome back to the post-game spread. I'm your host, Blake Helm. This is Mr. Bo Hart here, Colt Cardinals legend. This has been such a ride, man. In part 1, we went through growing up, all the way through his college career at Gonzaga. In part 2, we went through his minor league career. In part 3, we went through his magic moment with the Cardinals in 2003. And in part 4 here, we're gonna find the title. I usually kind of find something cool along the way, but this is going to be our descent down the mountain. And if you're familiar with are you familiar with the show Planet Earth? You ever seen that?
Like a National Geographic kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So the narrator, David Attenborough, I love him. He's got a great voice. Anyway, there's a quote. I'm a big fan of the show about climbing Mount Everest, and to paraphrase it, he essentially says that we can only be visitors at the top of mountains, like Mount Everest. The air is too thin. It's an alien world to us up there. And I don't know, when I was watching that the other day, I thought, this is Bo Hart's career. This is at the very top of the mountain, is this moment that you had that nobody can live at. You're hitting almost 500 for like a month, this crazy journey through the big leagues. But now you can't live there. We have to go down the mountain now. And I think we're going to really kind of get into how you felt about it and how it went. And, it wasn't always pretty, and we're going to get through that. But
is this where Shohei Ohtani is right now, at the top of the mountain?
Yes. There only a few people get to live there, Bo.
Well, I'm not. He's on a different mountain. I may be on a molehill compared to him, but no, $700 million for 10 years is pretty high up there.
This has been such a crazy story, man. I had no idea that there was so much here. I kind of imagined you were probably this stud coming up and everything was like a normal trajectory for a baseball player, but it's been quite the opposite. You started Little League at 12 years old, no competitive baseball, no structure before that, no travel ball, none of that. DH'd 4 as a high school senior. I love to keep highlighting that. Walked on as a JUCO, became a stud at Gonzaga, really became a part of the culture there. Ended up in the Cape Cod, drafted in the 33rd round. A strong minor league career in the right place at the right time. You have this magic moment, and now we're about to figure out what happens afterwards. We kind of took us all the way through that magic moment. There was a few things that I still wanted to get to. So
sure.
There was one clip of Noah that I thought was really cool that I want to open up with. And then a few questions, and then we'll start moving on here to afterwards. You ready, bud?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right, cool. Here's Noah.
It was honestly, I was awestruck. I mean, even having played with him, against him, all this stuff, throughout our lives, it was just we couldn't believe it had happened. I mean, the set of events and the circumstances of who got hurt, and then another person got hurt, and then it was just the way it all fell into place. Yeah. And when he got the call to go up, and then it was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then it was, hey, wait a second, he's hitting the ball like crazy. He's gotten hits in his first, whatever the record that he set, his first 15 at-bats. Yeah. The most hits of all time. And then all of a sudden he's on ESPN's top 10 plays of the day every day, making insane diving catch at second base. It was like he was his own highlight reel. It was crazy.
He was.
It was just every single day. And everyone's talking about him. Who is who is this kid? And, all the taglines, you got to have heart and all this thing. It just lends itself so perfectly to this Cinderella story.
Awesome clip by that guy here. I sped through it, but there was a few guys that you faced that I would love to hear your thoughts on, pitching wise.
Okay.
I was always fascinated by Kevin Brown and that power, sinker. What were your thoughts on facing that? What's that like?
Obviously, I think I was a little, I don't want to say intimidated, but there were some names like, those names around that time frame, like Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson, and I didn't get to face those guys. Either they were hurt or the schedule didn't work or whatever. But Kevin Brown was legit, like super movement, threw hard, super deceptive. And I mean, I literally got lucky on the hit that I had on him. And I remember that clip. I remember it because, again, I have that video that I've watched probably 100 times in the last 20 years. I'm leading off the game. We're in LA, and you know how he had that kind of like rock back, turn his body, and then really his arm came around at a funky arm slot, and there was just so much sink on it into a righty. And it was the first at bat of the game, and I think that it was a sinker. I think it was at like 92, but it looked like a left-handed curveball is what it kind of looked like, coming across the plate back down toward my back ankle, my back foot. And I literally, my swing was not an orthodox swing on that contact. I think I just kind of just looped and somehow tried to get the barrel on it to hit the ball on the ground somewhere. And I ended up hitting the ball into right center into the fence in the gap and led the game off with the double. And I remember Steve Lyons, if you remember him, he was an announcer, right, for Fox. And so he's like, there's a sinker that just goes into Bo's bat or something like that. And I got zero credit, from the broadcast of hitting a double off of Kevin Brown going opposite field with a sinker down and in. So, crazy. And then I think I got out the other two times, I believe, but in that one game, but yeah, he was filthy. And, I tip my hat to him and his career, but maybe there was some luck and some just trying to get the barrel on the ball, really.
Yeah. What about Kerry Wood?
Kerry Wood, I faced a couple times. I think I faced him once in Chicago and once in St. Louis, because obviously they're division rivals playing for the Cubs. And I remember Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor were this 1-2 punch for the Cubs. And they were at the top of the game, and they were super nasty with, fastballs and sliders. The slider really started to explode, I think, I don't want to say in this era, but in like a 3 or 4 year time frame, the slider became a very, very effective pitch, not only for relievers, right, like it was, but for starters as well. Mm-hmm. And so I also got lucky, but it was the hit that I had against Kerry Wood in Chicago was, I think there was a couple guys on base, and at Wrigley Field, a day game, and he threw a slider, but it was right in the middle of the plate. Like he made a mistake, if you will, and I just pulled it right down the line and started, I think, a rally that or was continuing a rally that had happened, and we ended up beating the Cubs that day. And then I think the only other hit, because I think I had 2 hits. Is that what the stats hit? So the other hit was a hit and run, and Kerry Robinson was on first base.
K-Rob.
Yep. And so Kerry Wood threw a slider or curveball or something that literally was at my eyes or above. It would just turn out to be a bad pitch. It was a ball, but I had the hit and run. So K-Rob is stealing first. The second baseman vacates and goes to second to cover the throw. And I literally tomahawk the ball, ground ball right through the second base position that was vacated into right field for a hit. And K-Rob went to third. It's like a, typical hit and run execution. So I remember that.
That's cool. some of these other names, I had to, power through them at the end last time. I just wanted to get them in, but now we got a little bit of time. What about Dontrell Willis, Rookie of the Year that year? Anything stand out about facing him? Just like that crazy delivery.
Yeah, he was a crazy athlete. He was
he could hit too. Boy, he could swing it.
Man, he could hit. I think the only highlight I have off of him is making a good defensive play against him. I don't know if I got a hit off him.
Did not.
But playing against the Marlins, I think I had a little bit of success against them. But yeah, he ended up being Rookie of the Year that year, right?
Yes, Rookie of the Year.
And so he was super deceptive with the way that he delivered the ball. But again, he was kind of almost a max effort kind of guy where he would load up. He was left-handed and tall. Yeah. And I just didn't fare very much against him. But I remember he was a very, very nice guy. Being a rookie at the same time and having a little bit of success, I think at some point, he was on base because he probably got a hit, and we were just kind of supporting each other, and he just had the nicest things to say, and likewise to him.
For sure. What about Hideo Nomo?
I don't know if I had any hits off of him.
What was it like facing him? Like, what is it? I mean, that's just, I want to hear about that experience of just that. I mean, I know this wasn't his heyday. It was kind of after that, but.
Yeah, he may have been. I'll tell you, I faced him a couple of years later, and I'll tell you that story. It's a different result. But no, facing him, I remember my success more than I remember facing him and not getting any hits. Okay. But it was, I wasn't a Dodger fan by any means. And, facing him or watching him play against the Giants, because I like the Giants, and just watching him and him being very unorthodox as well. Yeah. And really kind of paving the way for, Japanese players. He was one of the first to sign a multi-year contract, I think. Absolutely. in the MLB. So a lot of respect. And if I knew any Japanese, customs, I would have take my hat off and bowed or something like that. But, but what I do remember is a couple years later in spring training, I'm playing for the Rockies, and I'm trying to make it's our last game in spring training before they make the final decisions and all the cuts are made. And I'm trying to make the AAA team, and we're playing against the Rocky, or I was playing for the Rockies, and I think he was playing for, I forget what organization he was. I think trying to make his way back to the big leagues. Sure. So we're playing in a AAA, game at some random field, and I hit 2 home runs off him.
Oh wow!
and it was crazy because I don't hit a lot of no doubters in my life.
Yeah.
And I hit a couple balls off him, one to left center, one to right center, that surprised myself. And it was, I can still picture myself there. And the reason, not only because of the home runs, but I remember feeling so good about that because, again, spring training, I'm not always the strongest, but I think that may have pushed me over the edge to ensure that I made that team out of spring training. Okay. And I don't know if Nomo made his team or not. I can't remember, but it did, hitting a couple home runs on the last day may have taken me
absolutely
out of the circle into the circle of trust. But yeah, I remember facing him, and a lot of respect, of course.
Were there any of the I went through the list already, but the notable position players on other teams, were there anyone that you were just like, wow, I cannot believe I'm sharing the field with this guy right now?
I mean, yeah, there was somebody on every team.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just crazy.
And it's, I mean, the Griffeys, right? The Ken Griffey Juniors, the Barry Bonds, the Jim Tomes.
I know you have to look at them eye to eye, like you're playing on the same field. I'm talking to you like you're my buddy now, though. I'm like, dude, you got to experience this. Like, oh my God.
I mean, I think, there was just a lot of players, and you tried to, again, the game's going on, and the time that you get to think about that is before the game or after the game. Yeah. And so, there were a couple autographs. Like, I think there's kind of a little bit of a tradition to send a ball over with the clubbies to get a ball signed. I wish I had done that with Barry Bonds. I never did that. The only one I did it with was Mark Grace. And I remember at the end of our season, we're playing in Arizona. I think it was the last series, or maybe it was another series against Arizona, but I can't remember. Or maybe this was in 04. I can't remember, but he was retiring after the game.
Oh, wow.
And he had like his last at bat, and he hit the ball to right field for a single, and then got pinch ran for, and then he tipped his hat, and he was in Arizona, and everybody's cheering and whatever. But that ball came in from right field, and I got to catch the ball and then throw the ball into the dugout so that Mark could have his last major league hit, And so
they didn't put it in pudding.
I bet you they didn't. Right. So I got to touch that ball too. And I sent a ball over because I wanted to remember that moment for me. So I have a ball that's signed by Mark Grace. So it's cool.
And I remember you talked about you wished you had done more of that, but you thought you were going to have more time in the show. Like you're going to have time to do all this, right?
Totally. I mean, a rookie comes up and it's like, hey, Albert, will you sign this bat, to Bo, and you're the best hitter ever, Albert Pujols. Like, I'm not going to.
Right.
I didn't get any.
You want to act like you belong, right? On some level.
Yeah. Again, I'm trying to be a pro and not try to be a guy who's kind of like, oh, this is great. Or I might get sent down tomorrow, so you might as well sign this. And maybe if I had said that as I was gathering autographs, that would be more fun, or that would have been funny. But, I didn't. I didn't get many autographs, unfortunately, but I made up for it down the road.
For sure. Who had the nastiest stuff overall pitching wise? Then I'm going to put this list away.
Anybody could be nasty on any given day, but I really think the guys who like the Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor, I got lucky on a couple hits there. Kevin Brown was really, Billy Wagner, I faced him. He just threw really hard.
Yeah.
And Gagne again, he won the Cy Young that year. He was really nasty and dirty. I love the challenge. I really did. I don't feel like I was overmatched. There were some games where the pitcher was on and I was, trying to just make contact, like the Jason Smith comment you made. I struck out 3 times, but the pitcher, Dan Herron, got his first major league hit in that same game, a double off the wall. And Dan could hit. I mean, he was awesome. But, he got his first hit during that game and I struck out 3 times. Like, it's just, it's just baseball is one of those things where anybody can throw a no hitter. It's just, are they going to be on that day? And are the pitchers not, or the hitters not going to see something? It's just kind of how baseball is. Why it's a beautiful game.
You're dang right, man. All right. Let me get a few questions in and then we're going to roll on here. You got to play with arguably, one of the greatest trios in offensive history, and Edmonds, Pujols, Roland, those 3, like, insane. Like, I would love to just hear a little bit about maybe each one of them, maybe something that stood out, their process, something unique, something cool. Could we start with maybe Jimmy Edmonds?
I think everybody has their own pregame routine, and everybody repeated it. And I try to have my own. I didn't try to emulate anybody. I try to make sure I felt prepared and ready, whether it was a little extra BP or I'm good with a round left and just kind of like that's all I need. Yeah. Now Jim went about his business. I think based on feeling. Like he's like, okay, I feel good, and that's I don't need any more work.
That's all I need.
Yep, and I think everybody to an extent prepares that way, but I think Scott also he was all business, and that was again I didn't try to emulate anybody, but he would go about his preparation as far as batting practice to just hit some balls the other way, hit some balls in the gap, and then let me turn on some, and I think that watching him, I don't know, I think I was in his group more often than Jim or Albert. But it's amazing to watch them get ready. And when they know they're ready, they're ready. And I think that's kind of the theme here. Albert would I think he would go about his business during batting practice. And then I think right before the game, he would go take about 10 or 15 more swings in the tunnel that no one could see, you know, right before the game. And then he's ready to go. So everybody has their own little way of doing things, but offensively, defensively, you're ready to go at 4:00 every day for a 7:00 game. You don't just turn it on at 6:30. So everybody has their prep, whether in the clubhouse doing the exact same thing. And it's, I enjoyed that routine. I really did. So, I went about my business and made sure that I felt ready. And if I didn't, then it's just like, okay, I feel awful. This batting practice was terrible. And then every once in a while you get a couple hits anyway. And you're like, okay, well, does it, maybe it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
It is funny like that. Cool.
But, I think to kind of expand on that a little bit, just being in that lineup, I think, I don't want to say I didn't realize it. I had blinders on, whatever you want to say it, but I wasn't awestruck, or I wasn't, didn't feel like I didn't deserve to be there, especially after a couple weeks. It was like, okay, I am performing at this level. And so is everybody around me, which was really fun because I would get on base and I would score all these runs. I was involved in plays, I'm sliding into third or sliding into home plate and it's like bang, bang play. I'm like, man, I was safe, that kind of thing, cause I got this, awesome lineup behind me. That was really fun just to be on base and know that one of these 4 or 5 guys is going to hit one in the gap at some point and I'm going to score. So it was, I think, when Jim mentioned in his comments that I was a little bit of a spark plug, it was like, I think it's easier as a hitter to hit when runners are on, when there's nobody on, because the pitcher kind of gets a little bit, okay, I have to pitch a little differently because I don't want to allow a crooked run here, 1, 3, or 5 kind of runs. I have to, and that's when things start to press and then your performance changes. And now, 3 or 4 hits in a row is a rally. And to be able to start that each game, because, I would get a lot of hits to start the games. And I don't know what that was all about, but I think just taking advantage of the pitchers trying to throw strikes early in the count, right? Early in the game. Yeah. So, but it was fun. It was fun to be in that lineup and to hit leadoff pretty much 90%, 95% of the time. Yeah. Was a lot of fun because if I ended up getting a hit, then I know I was going to be scoring runs and running around the bases.
Yeah. Hey, tell me about this, your relationship with Dan Patrick.
Okay. So when I was in AA, Scott Prather knew Paul Pabst, and Paul Pabst was his radio producer at ESPN Radio. And so I think they either got connected somehow with a mutual friend or whatever, but we were playing in Connecticut and, where's ESPN? They're in, Bristol, right? Bristol. Yep. So on a day off, or take this back. So he got in touch with Paul Pabst, and then Paul and Dan Patrick came down. They were in New Haven for something. And so we went to a bar and sat at the bar and met Dan Patrick. There was like a handful of us.
Oh, well, this is before you were famous. I didn't realize that. Cool.
Yeah.
Or it starts. Yeah.
You're exactly. So, so we went and had a drink at the bar or whatever, and just kind of, hey, Dan Patrick. I mean, we all grew up watching him.
Absolutely, man.
On Sports Center, and that's what we stayed up late till 10 o'clock to watch the primetime kind of Sports Center. So, it was really fun, and he was quippy and a good dude and nice to us, and asked us about our minor league careers and things. And then a couple weeks later, we had a day off, and Paul said, "Hey, you want to come up?" And we're recording our show here. I think it was Dan Patrick, Kurt Herbstreit, and Sean Salisbury.
Wow, that's some names.
So yeah, and so it's a couple football guys, and obviously Dan, he's a basketball guy and all sports guy. Yeah. But so they were recording, and so we waved at them. We went into the producer room, and there's the big window, and we're just kind of saying hi. And so we're getting a tour of ESPN, the campus there in Bristol. And they they took a break or whatever, and said hi to us, and Dan's like, yeah, these guys are a bunch of minor leaguers, they're not playing too far away, blah blah blah. So so we got to take pictures at like the Sports Center like desk.
Oh, cool.
And I have a picture. It's really cool. It's me and Scott and John Gall, I think, went. And so we had that cool day or half a day at ESPN. It was really fun. So that was AA. And then the next year I'm in St. Louis. Yeah. And the day that I make my first game, right, June 19th, apparently Paul went to Dan Patrick, because I think we all kind of stayed in touch just a little bit, right? And Paul was a great guy. And so he goes to Dan and he said, hey, remember one of those minor leaguers that came to ESPN and you had a drink with him and knew him? And he's like, yeah. He's like, well, he made his major league debut today. And he's like, all right, I'll do the highlight. So he got to do the highlight, which I don't have I have never seen. Yeah. Because I didn't like go home and watch Sports Center after after the games or anything. So he grabbed the highlight and he got to, kind of, I don't want to say introduce me to, Sports Center, but he did my first highlight.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that was really cool. And then so I just kept, having some success. And I think he kept doing them as when he was available and wanted to grab the highlight and that kind of thing. But he did the first one. And then I think so that off season comes and Dan Patrick, like Paul called me and said, hey, Dan's going to be in Phoenix. And I know that you live in Phoenix. He's going to be there doing the national championship Fiesta Bowl was that year or whatever. But, he offered if you wanted to go play golf with him.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And I was like, okay. I was like, sure. Why not? So, tea time and all that stuff. And here's Dan's number. And so we're playing at this awesome golf course in Phoenix, and it's January 1st and, or 2nd or whatever it was. And beautiful day. And so Dan and I just talked about life and sports, and I asked him about Sports Center and obviously, and who his favorite partner was. He said Keith Olbermann at the time. Okay. And because they had some really good chemistry and things. And yeah. And I always tell this story, and I later found out, and I'll tell you here in a second, I think I was a little bit nervous. Just playing, it was just me and Dan, right? And we got cooler, had a couple beers or whatever, and just trying to, he's a good golfer. Yeah. And so I'm trying not to be like fanboy here with him. And I think he noticed I was a little bit nervous. And so it was like the 4th or 5th hole, and I hit like an approach shot to the green, and he starts announcing the shot. And he's like, whatever he would say is like, oh, it looks like you're visiting the bird sanctuary or something like that, right? It was really funny.
Just breaking the tension.
Just totally breaking the tension. And I always just thought that was curious, or I was curious. I thought it was kind of funny. And so I've told that story in many interviews because I've been asked about Dan Patrick a lot over the years. And I heard an interview with Jim Hayes does, I think, the bird chat or the bird chirp, something like that. Do you know who Jim Hayes is?
I've heard the name.
He's a broadcaster for the Cardinals in St. Louis, and he has his own or cat chat, something like that. And so he interviewed Dan Patrick, and I've done a podcast with him before, but he did one with Dan Patrick, and I listened to it because Jim's like, hey, you might want to listen to this. And so Jim is like, hey, welcome Dan Patrick, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we're in St. Louis here, blah, blah. Thanks for being on. I got to ask you about Bo Hart. And this is like maybe 5 years ago. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, Bo told me that, you guys played golf and all this. And Dan kind of chuckled, and he's like, Bo was so nervous playing golf with me that I had to break the ice somehow. And announcing his shot once or twice, I think broke the ice, and that's why I did it. So yeah. I appreciated that after the fact. It's not like I thought ill of him, but because I thought he was just trying to be funny. Yeah. So it worked. But the last thing I'll say is Dan was, I think he was very supportive, and obviously I was on the show a couple times during my success, as an interview or like a pick'ems. He used to have like a Sunday pick'ems for the NFL. So I got to do that once, and that was really fun. But obviously, as I come down the mountain, the calls stopped coming. But I had a great time. And it's kind of funny that we share a little bit of those stories. Either him or I get asked about it.
That's great. Moving on, I could sit here and ask you Edmonds, Pujols, and Rollins questions for hours, but this is the Bo Hart story. So we're moving on here, bud. That was a great story, by the way. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So after this season, man, you got to be thinking different. And I imagine no longer are you thinking, man, I'm just one day at a time. Like, you have some real thoughts going on. Like, hey, I'm a big leaguer. I think I belong. What's my opportunity going to be? How's this next season going to go? You're going to be in big league camp for the first time.
Right.
Yeah. Just take me. I'd love to hear your thoughts going into this off season.
Yeah. The off season was great. I finally had some money in my pocket.
Yeah.
I got rid of my 1982 Toyota Supra that I had.
Were the 10s still in it?
No, I had 6x9s. 6x9s. I got some of those later.
Right.
Yeah, they got stolen. But no, I mean, I had that. Honestly, that was the car that I had sitting,
you were
waiting.
Still rolling that? That's amazing.
Well, I was in the minor leagues at the beginning of the year. So, but I still had that from high school, which is amazing. I love that car. But I ended up getting rid of that, and I bought a Lexus. And so,
coming up,
a little bit of an upgrade.
Sure.
And so I was enjoying an off season where I don't want to say I didn't have to work, but there were no worries.
Yeah.
And and I was living in Phoenix, and it was fun. I was with a girl who was with all of this, or with me through all of this, which was great support and a lot of fun. And and the off season, I mean, just was really fun. I did like work out at an elite facility that was just getting started up, and that was like the last 2 months, I think, of the off season. It was called Athletes Performance.
API,
right?
Mark
Verstegen, right?
Yeah.
And so that was just getting started. Yeah, Nomar was there. Kurt Schilling was there.
Wow, that's
amazing. Chase Utley before he really had his break. A guy named Brian Roberts, Matt Cada. Gosh, there were so many names.
Core Performance, yeah.
Yeah, Core Performance. And so I got to do that for a couple months. And that was
cool.
And that was awesome.
Yeah, I was wondering if you attacked your training a little differently. Like, no longer are you just getting the packet, but now you've got some money to go seek out like a high level trainer and like really tune your body up.
Yeah, and there was like 60 players there. And so, it was speed training. We were doing medicine ball stuff. We were in the gym. We had all these, we had a meal plan. We were getting, therapy, all this kind of stuff. And it was just a very elite level. And, I thank my agents because they paid for it. It's like, I think this would be great. So it was like 4 days a week where I would go there.
That's awesome.
And then it was right near Arizona State University. So a couple of those days we would go hit at their like outdoor cages. And so we had some time there, and there was a huge turf field in the back here. We could take ground balls, we can throw, we could play basketball. There was a basketball court. There was a pool and like a hot tub. We're doing all kinds of like water workouts and of course, lots of core stuff, lots of, planks and whatever. And so I never,
this is really like a full on everything they look at and try to optimize, right?
Totally. I didn't have to think about anything. We had, there was like each group of 6 or 8 players got, had a trainer, and then would just go through the 2 or 3 hour workout, would just Bo, this is what you're doing. And I was literally never lifted weights like that before. So I got into really great shape and felt absolutely ready for 2004.
Yeah. Primed.
Yeah. And so it was I don't want to say the best off season I ever had, but it was definitely, I was enjoying the ride, and making sure I was prepared. I took nothing for granted. And so I was definitely prepared for spring training.
Yeah. So then we're coming up to spring training. This is one question I wanted to ask. With some clubs at the end of the year, there's some sort of like an exit interview with the manager. Did you have anything like that with Tony or anything like that? No,
I don't think so. Okay. It wasn't like, hey, this is what we need to work on.
Right. Some clubs do that.
Yeah. I think I don't remember that happening. So It probably didn't. It was just like, hey, great job. We'll see you next year. Kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you went into camp thinking you're competing for a starting spot, or you have some sort of they're thinking of you in that way, or?
Yeah, I think I arrived maybe a few days early and was feeling really good about that.
Because Vigna's gone, right?
I think Vigna ended up getting traded or was a free agent, and he signed with like the Brewers or something like that, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
So I just went in. It's like, all right, I'm just going to go about my work, and it's going to be different. But I was excited for big league spring training because, again, I had never been.
Right.
So I was like, ooh, this is going to be different in the best way. So, but I did notice, there was a lot of other middle infielders there. I think Marlon Anderson was there. He was an infielder / outfielder. Who was the other guy? Obviously, Miguel Cairo and I think Wilson Delgado were back. And then they ended up doing a Rule 5 draft guy named Hector Luna, who came, they selected him in the Rule 5 draft. And the rules around that back then was either they have to keep the players that they select in the Rule 5 draft, they have to keep them in the big leagues the entire year. And if they send them down, they have to like give them back or something like that.
Right.
To the team that they took him from, because he was in the minor leagues before. And so he was there. And then there's one other guy, I can't remember his name. But guys that had big league experience before. Mm-hmm. And I think that was, obviously I knew that. Okay, yeah, hey, it's nothing's handed to me.
Sure.
And so let's have some competition. And I think Tony needed, he needed to be like, okay, I need to have a safety blanket just in case Bo, who let's hope they thought I was going to be the starter. If they got rid of Vigna, it's like, okay, this is Bo's job to lose, so to speak, based on spring training performance. But nobody's telling me that. Right. It's just like, hey, and I'm not asking any questions. I'm just like, let me go about my business.
Right.
And I think, credit to Tony. He gave me every opportunity. I think I led the team in at bats that spring training. I think I had close to 70 at bats.
What were the results?
I probably was, I don't know, I probably hit 200, maybe 215.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. Didn't hit any homers.
But like an interesting thing I think is to highlight here is that for someone trying to make the club, hitting 200 might be a big deal. For Jim Edmonds hitting 200, nobody bats an eye, right? Nobody cares. He's just getting his work in, and like, he's going to get that leash that you're not going to get.
Of course. Well, and because he's proven that he can perform at that big league level for a long period of time, which
absolutely
he deserves that, and I kind of deserve the treatment that I got. Not necessarily the result, but I was I was given the opportunity to prove to them that I could still hit the big league level. But again, I was not that was almost like every spring training for me.
Right.
So, but again, pressure, that was the pressure. That was the going home at night going, man, okay, am I doing the right things? Defense, I made a few errors, at short and at third. I don't know if I made many at second, but short and third were new positions for me at the big league level. So there was a little bit of stress there. But again, that's, at some point, that's when Roland, this is how awesome Scott is. He, after workouts, after a game, I made an error at third or maybe even two during a spring training game. And he wasn't playing that day, or I went in for him in the middle of the game or something like that. Mm-hmm. But he took me into the batting cage and he grabbed a bucket of balls. He's like, okay, how are you feeling right now? Let's talk about this. Because you can catch the ball, you can throw the ball. it's, tell me about third. So we had this discussion, and then we just worked on reading the hops and things and spent 35 minutes in there, 30 or 45 minutes in there,
really
which
cool
I really appreciated that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A superstar doing that? Kidding me?
I know. So he cared, right?
Yeah.
He cared for sure. And he was that guy. He was very quiet but when he talked, you were going to listen. So
yeah.
I really appreciated that. And I told him that, of course. But, if we fast forward a little bit to, again, because I'm not stressed out. I don't want to say, but I am feeling, the pressure of a daily performance to prove that I can play.
Absolutely, man.
And I wasn't going out very much. I was, getting my rest. I was doing the work that needed to be done. And again, nobody's really telling me anything. And so I'm feeling good, even though I'm only hitting 200. No one's like slipping me a note saying you better, you got to turn it on or whatever. So with about 2 weeks to go in spring training, LaRussa called me in his office. And he's like, hey, I see literally, this is what he tells me. He says, I see you making this team as the starting second baseman.
Wow.
Just don't worry about it. Keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to be the starter. So that's 2 weeks before spring training. So maybe we got 10 more games or something like that, right?
That would make you feel great.
And it did. And it did.
That would take a lot of pressure off.
I didn't say thank you. I didn't say anything. I was like, okay, you're the boss kind of thing. Like, okay, awesome. Maybe I did say thank you. But I was like, okay, great. I appreciate that. And that literally, I think I slept the best I did that night, during all of spring training, and just kind of relaxed and, just kept going about my business. But again, I am not joking around like these, like half the team is all the time. And you think spring training is like this loose environment, in which it is, especially if you're the guys who are on the team.
For some it is. For some it's like pressure.
Yeah. So I haven't fallen into that trap. I'm not
you're not Cadillacing it.
No, I'm not, turning my hat around playing flip, or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep doing my job and getting ready. And I appreciated him telling me that.
Yeah.
And so, but it didn't change my performance. 4 days later, with 10 days to go, this is when things changed. And I don't know why he told me that 4 days before, because he probably knew this was going to happen. Because it's literally, just a few days later. He's like,
baseball's a cutthroat sport, man. Damn. Yep. Here we go.
So he's like, hey, we made a trade, and we brought in Tony Womack. He's the second baseman. He's going to be the starter. And but I see you making this team as the utility guy. You can play all three positions, and you I don't think I want to say you've earned that, but I don't know if he said that. But he just, he's like, I see you making it. So, keep going about your business. And so I was a little dejected. But again, I've never made a big league team out of spring training. I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, you're the boss. I got it. So I keep going about my business. And we end up breaking from Jupiter, right? It's called breaking. We broke the club, and everybody goes where they go obviously for the minor leagues and stuff. And then our team, and we came to Memphis actually, to play 2 exhibition games at AutoZone Park here. And, the first game goes fine. I think I started or I pinch hit or something. So that was really fun because I'd play for the Redbirds and they, were cheering for me. It was great.
Yeah.
And then the second game, I think I maybe got him bad. I can't remember, but it was the 9th inning of the second exhibition game here. And he calls me over to him. Literally, there's like 1 out or 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning. And Tony wraps his arm around me and he says, he's I love you like a son. That's what he said to me.
Wow.
Love you like a son, but I got to send you down.
Oh, man.
And I was devastated.
I feel devastated right now in this moment.
And I said, what happened? And he said, well, we traded for Roger Cedeno. And that brings Marlon, who had made the team from the outfield into the infield as the utility guy. And Roger's going to be the starting right fielder. And that's you're just left out.
Man.
So I was devastated, like I just said, and put myself in that locker room right now. And I had told my family, who was waiting out, I forget who else was there, but I said, if I come out in a suit, that means I made the team. And if I come out in jeans and a collared shirt, that means I'm staying here. And I came out,
God.
and they all just went, oh. And that was really sad.
Man, I mean.
Because, well, obviously, partly because of what he had told me.
Yeah.
But I have no regrets, Blake, because I went about the business I need to do to get ready for the season.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, kind of like Danny Schaefer said and Mark DeJean said, Tony didn't want a development project at the big league level.
Right.
And again,
he wasn't going to let you play through growing pains, it sounds like.
Exactly. And that's what the minor leagues are for. And so he, obviously feeling pressured to do his job, to make sure that he put a team on the field that was going to be a winning team. I mean, look what happened. We went to the World Series that year in 2004. So, Tony, great job, but man, could I have not? Yeah, broke my heart. So,
in this moment where you find out you don't make the team, I mean, are tears? Where are you at?
I don't think I have tears. No.
Okay. Well, looking back, how do you feel about those things that Tony said to you, that, you're going to be the starter, and then like a couple days later?
I want to say that they were truthful in the sense that he wanted that to happen for me.
Okay. Yeah.
But, when you have the general manager and you have the assistant general manager and you have the manager of the team trying to ensure that the winning tradition from the Cardinals continues.
Yeah.
There probably was a question mark with me offensively, and that they were not going to allow the first month of the season to let me work that out.
Yeah, man.
So,
because I feel like, I'm not a GM. I'm not Tony La Russa. I'm not going to even joke like I have any kind of knowledge of how this all works. But man, I just feel like you earned more than that the year before. I feel like you did.
If I had a nickel for every time somebody told me that, I think I would have a shitload of nickels. I truly believe that as well.
Yeah.
But, looking back over the last several, years since I've been away from baseball, you put yourself in Tony's shoes, is it the right decision for the organization? Probably.
Yeah.
But again, the only time that I failed was the last several weeks of the season when I was platooning.
Yeah.
And spring training. That's an impossible
thing to do in the big leagues, trying to be productive and getting spot starts. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that.
As a rookie as well.
Yeah.
So some people have done it. Great. Credit to them. Some people, some people can't. And so, was I devastated? I feel like I had earned it the season before. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like I was not overmatched at any point in the year.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. The spring training, I think, was the deciding factor for them to make that decision.
Yeah.
And the kicker was 5 days later, like we had 2 days I think we had 3 days of just workouts before the minor league season started.
Yeah.
And so I was like mopey,
Yeah.
I was the eighth dwarf. I was mopey for a while. And I was really upset. And I was just like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you would think that if it was in the middle of the season, maybe it'd be different. Like okay, let me work to get back there. I hadn't flipped that switch yet.
Yeah.
So I was still kind of in shock mode. And I think we played one game and I was like 0 for 4 and, mopey. And then the next game, I remember I think it was either the second or the third game. I don't have any hits and I'm just kind of like, blah. And so I remember I hit a home run to center field at dead center field at AutoZone.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that made me feel better.
Homers are good.
Homers are good. And so I'm there that night or whatever, and I'm just I'm hanging out, and my phone keeps ringing, and I'm like, it's some random number. I don't know who it is. And I just kept ignoring it because I was sitting there having a beer or whatever. I was just, ignoring my phone, I guess. And it calls like 3 or 4 times in a row. I was like, who is this?
Yeah, someone wants to talk to me.
Yeah. It was like midnight, right? And I pick it up and he's like, Bo. I was like, yes. And he said, this is Danny Schaefer, your manager. Answer the phone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're going back to St. Louis. Roger Cedeno pulled his hamstring.
Yeah. Answer your phone.
And I was like, sweet.
Let's go.
All right.
There we go.
All is well with the world, right? I was like, man, he's like, I told you if you hit a home run, you go back to St. Louis. And I was like, oh, okay, nice. Good call.
Yeah, there you go.
So I pack my stuff and I'm like, all right, I'm going back to St. Louis.
Yeah.
It was great. And
you weren't there very long, right?
No. So I get there and it's like, I drove up there, my car or whatever.
Yeah.
And I get there and I go into Tony's office and he's like, hey, welcome back. And he said, this might be what you're doing this season is up back and forth as we need you.
Yeah.
And I said, I can live with that. I said, yes, sir. You're the boss. Right.
Right.
I was like, okay. So I'm there a total of like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I started one game and I don't even know if I finished the game. I got pulled out in like the 7th or 8th. Maybe I started 2 games, but I got like 12 at bats.
Yeah.
And I pinch hit a couple times and I was like 3 for 12. I think that's what I got. 3 hits. And I come to the ballpark one day and this I'll remember. There's a lot of media in the clubhouse at this point. I was like, what's going on? And I like come to my locker and a reporter's like, hey, Bo, did you get sent down? I was like, no.
Oh, man, that's how you found out?
I was like, no. And then literally LaRusse is like, Bo, let me talk to you. And I looked at the reporter and I'm like, thanks a lot.
Damn.
And so I went into his office and he said, hey, remember when I told you, this might be what you're doing? This is, I got to send you down. We need more pitching. Cedeno's feeling better. I gotta swap it out or whatever he said. He's like, but you'll be coming back and forth. And I believed him. I said, okay, I'll be ready.
Yeah.
That's what I told him. I was like, I will be ready. And, be ready to come back when you need me. Mm-hmm. And this is when I like flip that switch where I'm like, okay, I'm not Mr. Mopey anymore. This is my role. and I'll come back. I'll get my opportunity.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. And so I kind of put myself in that mindset of I can't worry about the decisions that are being made. And I soon realized that it wasn't my performance from this moment on. It was my performance that put a bad taste in their mouth to make a change. Because they felt like they had to add a veteran to their team to not have me on the team, or because I didn't make the team. So they had to shuffle a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So if they had just stuck with me, who knows what would have happened? I would have been a lot happier. But would we have been as successful a team? And I like to think yes, or at least some point, or to some level. But hindsight 2020. There's no way. Like, I can see clearly now, but there's no way that anybody can decide that. And again, like I said, for them to make those changes at the end of spring training, it worked out for the organization, and that's ultimately what their job is to do. It's not to say, "Oh, poor Bo, he deserved it," and let's just let him fail at second base. I'm sure they had that conversation. They had to have and said, we can't afford, because of our winning tradition. If I was like, literally, if I was like on the Pirates or some other team, I say Pirates just because I think they're a smaller market team, and they don't have the winning tradition that the Cardinals had.
Yeah.
If I was on some other team, I think I absolutely would have been there no matter what happened that spring training, because there isn't the standard in Tony La Russa's mind that's held over the organization and the performance for the fans and for the front office and everybody. I think I would have had a longer career if I wasn't in the Cardinal organization.
I 100,000,000% agree with you. Yeah, it's like you were in the right place at the right time for your moment, but then you were in the wrong place after that.
Right. And I think and that's out of my control. I can't do anything.
And I imagine you must have felt so frustrated because you're 27 at this point, and your window to make money to be a big leaguer is not huge for everyone. This is a young man's game. And totally. I mean, were you feeling frustrated being put on ice that whole season, essentially?
Well, like I said, I accepted that role. Again, I'm believing everything that Tony is telling me. So I'm accepting that role, and I flip that switch where I can't control this. I'm going to go do my job.
Let's make the best of it.
Right. And so I'm in Memphis.
Oh, and you're killing it.
And yeah, so and again, maybe that's a mindset, or maybe that's just how baseball is. But again, I got to get back there. And a lot of the players down there were like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" kind of thing. And that made me feel better, right? Because I think Skip Schumacher's down there, Wainwright. I think Yachty is down there. That was the 04 team. I played with a lot of great players, and we had a good team in AAA, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And and I was playing, and I think there was a point where I really started to play well, or really well, because I met my future wife when I got sent down. I mean, give me a break, Blake. It's
all connected, buddy.
It was 6 weeks after. It was, I think, Memorial Day, 2004, something like that. I don't remember when it was, but I met her, and things changed in my life, and she gave me good perspective. And I had just gotten out of another relationship, which was really, which was tough, but being able to lean on Lydia with some of these things and to get her thoughts, it was, I mean, again, if I'm in St. Louis, I don't meet her, and my life is completely different. I don't have my 2 boys. I don't have my house in the suburbs. I don't have the life that I have now, which is awesome. And that's the way I'm always going to look at it. That this is the silver lining of not being in the major leagues that season, is because I was destined
to meet Lydia.
Exactly.
100%. And you absolutely balled here, man. Like 116 games, 7 triples, 25 doubles, 8 bombs, 299. that's a strong year in AAA. That says I'm ready to be in the show again. But it just the numbers weren't there, I guess. Or not in the number. Your stats were there. I'm talking about roster-wise.
Right. So, I finished that year really strong. Thank you, Lydia. Finished the year strong. I don't get called up again the rest of the year. And it's out of my control. I'm playing better than I did to get called up the first time.
Is that what's going on? Are you like, are you going to call me up anytime soon here? What's going on?
Well, hey, you look at it, they're in a playoff run, and or they are about to be, because our season, the minor league season, ends at the end of September, the end of August. Excuse me, the end of August, a month before the major league season ends.
Yeah.
And so, I don't get called up. I think my agents are asking questions, and to be honest, at some point, and I can't remember how aggressive they were, right? Joe Hipskin and Bob Lattenville were great guys who I ended up signing with when I was in, A-ball, I think, or after the fall league. Great guys. They're St. Louis lawyers and attorneys and sports agents and stuff. And I really liked the way they treated me. And I think I was a big fish in a small pond, kind of at their firm. Right. And so they did a great job. I don't know what questions were being asked that I didn't know about, because I feel like if I'm good enough to be in the big leagues, but not on the Cardinals, then I'm good. Then I need to be moved. I need to be traded.
Exactly.
Or something. And I don't know how those conversations went, but I got stuck in AAA that year, and I should have been in the big league somewhere. And I think I can fairly say that right now.
I totally agree with you, bud.
So like the end of our season comes, and I would have hit 300 instead of 299. I guess the stats were wrong. It was the last game of the season. I have to throw this in here. It's the last game of the season, and my manager's like, "Hey, you're hitting 302. You can go 0 for 5 today, and you're still hitting 300. You're going to play the last game." I said, "That's fine." So I think I went 0 for 3, and he pulled me out of the game. And so he's like, "All right, just want to make sure I think you're hitting 301 or whatever."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, great." And that was a big deal when it comes to hitting. And every baseball player or coach who listens to this is going to know that, hey, 300 season is something that doesn't happen too often. So I was like, "Oh, that's fine." Took me out of the game. I'm going to hit 300. The final stats come out, and I'm hitting 299. So I don't know. It's all good, right? It's all good. So I finished the year strong, and not only is my season strong, but my relationship is strong with Lydia, and also is my fantasy football team is very strong. And I only say that because I was it was like a noon or something. Noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm set, or maybe no, it's before that. So it was like 11 o'clock, and I'm setting my fantasy football lineup. I'm at the Flying Saucer downtown, because I live downtown. So downtown Memphis, that's where actually I met Lydia.
Cool.
I'm messing with my computer and stuff, and my phone rings, and I'm like, "That's a St. Louis phone number. I'm going to answer this." And it was John Mozeliak, the assistant GM for the Cardinals. Walt Jocketty was the GM at that point.
Right.
So he's like, "Hey, Bo." And I was like, "Hey, John," or Mr. Mozeliak, probably.
Yeah.
He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm setting my fantasy football team for today's games. What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, we would like to have you come up for the last game of the year, and for the playoff run, to be on the non-active roster, just in case we might need you for the playoffs."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Let me think about it." No, I didn't say that. I'm kidding. I said, "Of course I'll be there." And he's like, "Okay, you got to be here tomorrow. We have a day game." And so I said, "Thank you. I appreciate it." And again, I think the conversations that had happened September 1st instead of September 30th is I should have got called up for September. At least give me that.
I agree, dude.
Because at least give me a 30 days of a big league salary, because in the playoffs you don't get paid.
Right.
You only get the playoff bonus that your team earns.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got called up. So I was just like, okay. I think that conversation had happened with my agents where like, a couple pitchers got called up. I think another, I forget, but I didn't get called up in September. So that kind of irked me too. And I think that's why I was like, who's calling me from St. Louis right now? But this is the roller coaster that I've described, I think, very briefly. The roller coaster of the end of my big league career is at the top of the mountain, and then I'm coming down, and then I get notched up a little bit, and then I come down and I get notched up again, and then I continue to go down. And I think that's this was another one of those moments where it's like, hey, Bo, we're just kind of just reeling you in a little bit,
keeping your hopes up a little bit.
I mean, yeah. So
kick you.
So I'm like, hey, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be at the game tomorrow. The game's at 1:00. I was like, okay. So I literally, find Lydia, and I go home. I'm like, hey, guess what? I'm going up. And then she's like, oh, it's so great. She was so supportive, and didn't let me continue to be bitter.
Nice.
She was great. And so she, I packed my bags, and I think I ended up driving up there pretty late. I stayed with her as long as I could. And I think we played the Dodgers first. And this is right at the turning point of our relationship, where there was like, hey, is this going to be a long-term thing? And am I going back to Arizona? But I was still kind of milling around. I think we had decided, or at least I had decided, hey, I'm staying here for you. And she's like, don't do that. And, what if it doesn't work out? Then your whole life is here now. I was like, well, you know what? Hey, it's fine. So we were turning or had a turning point in our relationship for the better. And I mean, it's during the playoffs, so it's like, okay, I got to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to
pull this out a little bit. I'm still getting that sound a lot.
Gotcha. Sorry, it's rubbing.
Thanks,
there you go.
Yep.
So that was fun to have her supportive. But again, I left, and then I think we started playing the Dodgers. I forget where we were to start, but we ended in LA, and we ended up winning that series. And again, I'm on the emergency squad. I was an infielder, so it was me and Ray Lankford and Cody McKay were the three guys who were not active during the playoffs. And just in case somebody were to get hurt or something happened, where, okay, we have players, because we're taking batting practice and we're ready to play.
Yeah.
We're just not, available for, that until they activated us.
Yeah.
And so, so I feel like I'm part of the team. There's guys that I play with in minor leagues and in the big leagues, all up there, and I feel like I'm acting like I'm on the team. It's not like we're, in the corner. Okay, now the scrubs come in. That kind of thing.
Right.
You get 2 minutes of batting practice. Go. Where everybody else gets 20. It's like. So we were mixing in nicely and getting back to game speed, because I hadn't played in a month, which was crazy. So I'm going about the playoffs, and it's great. I'm coming to and from St. Louis, and we end up beating the Dodgers, and then the NLCS is against, I think, the Astros that year, I want to say. So that was fun. And so Game 7 happens in St. Louis against the Astros in the NLCS. And I said, Lydia, you're coming up. You and your dad, who's a big Cardinal fan, is like, you and your dad coming up. I got tickets for you. Come on, let's go. Drive up. So it was her and her dad driving up. And again, in his eyes, I can't do anything wrong. But he doesn't know, like, to the extent of our relationship. And so, again, 4 hours in the car with your dad when you're in a new relationship, I'm sure there was some questions going, hey, who's this? Do you love him? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they had some moments, and I don't remember the details of those conversations, but it was all good because he really liked me. And And so we get to game 7 and they're there and it's great. And they're staying in a hotel and I'm staying in my apartment, blah, blah, blah. And we ended up winning game 7, right?
Yeah.
Or I think game 6 was quite dramatic, I believe. I think it was Jim Edmonds' home run in the 9th inning or something like that, which was quite exciting. And then game 7, we ended up winning, I think on a ground ball or whatever. And, celebration on the field. And I have a picture of it. I have a plaque. Randomly, me and Dan Herron, this picture that I think was a major league license picture was, 2004 National League champion St. Louis Cardinals. And me and Dan have our jerseys there, but Pujols and Roland and Edmonds are all at the bottom of the pile. But somehow my jersey is shown and it's like, cool. Oh, hey, Bo's on the team. So I have that plaque, and so that's really cool. And so I'm on the field and Lydia loves this because, we're early in our relationship, but in this pandemonia of us going to the World Series, I find her in the stands and I'm like waving to her from the field, which is really cool.
That's a sweet moment.
Yeah. And so, we have a great party, we're popping champagne, we're going to the World Series. This is awesome. I'm not thinking about anything other than being on this awesome team and them having success. There's no bitterness. There's no nothing. I'm not having any conversations with LaRussa about my future or anything like that. This is like, hey, we're having a great time.
I'm glad you were able to enjoy that moment and not dwell on your kind of situation. That's awesome.
I was celebrating like I had just had the game-winning hit. I had a great time.
Dude, that's awesome.
It was the fans in St. Louis were incredible. Yeah. And then, we have the celebration in the clubhouse for like an hour or whatever. And Lydia's in there and we're having a great time and blah, blah, blah. And then I think her dad poked his head in. He'd never been in the clubhouse like that. So he got to check it out. And then Lydia and I go out and we celebrate and we left her dad behind. He's like, don't worry about me. I'm having a great time. So he was like in the streets of St. Louis, running around going, we're going to the World Series.
Yeah.
And so it was a late night, great time. I ended up meeting them for breakfast before we get on our plane to go to Boston because they had an amazing series against the Yankees and they were down 3-0 and then they won 4 in a row.
Yeah. And
they ended up winning their series. And so we're going to Boston first. And I had a Stan Musial autograph that he came in at some point during the playoffs. Stan the Man came in the clubhouse and I got a ball or two signed from him.
That's cool.
And I gave it to her dad at breakfast and he was like, had tears in his eyes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I said, Lydia, maybe I said Billy because his name is Billy. I was like, Billy, I want to take, Lydia to the World Series with me to Boston. And he's like, what? He's like, of course, go. And I said, well, you can't get on this flight, but when you get to Memphis, there's a flight waiting for you. You're coming to Boston like tomorrow. Cause the series we got a couple of days off, right? Like 2 days or something to travel. Mm-hmm. So, and so that was a really special moment because I was like, hey, I want you to come up here and spend this time with us. And we had it was a great time. So I traveled to St. Louis or traveled to Boston. She came and met us in Boston. And that was just kind of like solidified our relationship and professed our love to each other game 1 of the World Series. It was really cool.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, so she was there we played 2 games there. We ended up losing games, but the second game there, this is kind of sketchy. So the second game there, David Ortiz or some big left-handed hitter like crushed one to second, and Tony Womack's playing second. And it like one hopped off the infield and hit him in the neck, and it hit his collarbone and bounced over there, and he came out of the game. And I forget, I think it was Joe Patini came to me after the game or whatever and said, he's like, okay, they're going to take Tony for x-rays. If it's broken, you're going to be activated.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Man.
Game 2 of the World Series. I haven't played in 8 weeks. I'm going to now be activated. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So now I'm like, oh, okay, let me.
Yeah. Different feeling.
Didn't see that coming. Right. Yeah. So So now I'm like, now I'm a little nervous.
Right.
It's not like I'd be the starter, but I'm like, I'm a little nervous now.
It's the World Series, man. Yeah.
It's the World Series.
Yeah.
And so we end up losing game 2. And I think that was the bloody sock game, something like that. I think was it the bloody sock game? I want to think it was with Kurt Schilling kind of thing. He was a gamer for sure.
Yeah.
And so, it's after the game, everybody's getting ready. We're going back to St. Louis. Tony had told the whole team, "It's like, hey, look, they're on a high right now. They're at home. They've won 6 in a row. We're going home to our fans. We're going to be just fine."
Yeah.
And so everyone's like, "Okay, cool. I can process that. We're going home. We're going to be fine." Get the X-rays back from Tony Womack. He does not. It's not broken. And they're like, "We're going to see how he is tomorrow, but you never know what might happen, Bo." I was like, "Okay, so I'm going to ready myself." So the cool part is when we travel back to St. Louis from Boston, I was able to get Lydia on that plane.
Oh, cool.
And I didn't want her traveling, commercial anymore, because on her way up to Boston, she wore my Cardinal jersey.
Didn't go so well.
And I mean, she's feisty, so she can hold her own for sure. And she did, but she was getting lots of
getting
chirped and booed on the plane while she's walking through the airport. And I see her come out of I had a car service there, and I was there to pick her up, and she's walking down. I was like, "What are you doing? Why are you wearing my jersey?" And she's like, "What are you talking about? My boyfriend plays for the Cardinals. That's what I'm," she's being proud of it. And I was like, "But you're in Boston. Like, wait until you get here, put it on," But anyway, so we had a funny moment. She's like, "No, I'm proud of this."
That's great.
But so I got her on the plane, and we had a great time just traveling back. It was very low key. It wasn't like we won the game, and that you kind of have a different, team personality when you win or lose. And during the playoffs, it's very mellow, and people are giggling and all kind of things, but there's no party by any means on the plane. So, so we had a good time. We go back to St. Louis, and, we end up losing the series. I was never activated, and that was the end of 2004 season. I came back to Memphis. I was here. Lydia and I were strong and steady. So I was here for the off season, and just going about my business. And again, it's November now, so there's only a couple months before the season starts. And I took a nice break. Again, I'm readying myself to try to win a spot in 2005.
Yeah. So you still believe, hey, this season might have not gone exactly how you wanted it to, but you had strong numbers. You're still in the mix to some degree. You still believe that you can win a spot here.
I mean, yeah, again, the roller coaster. Now I'm going up, and I'm feeling good because they see me. They see me as somebody who could help them during the playoffs in a pinch. Was that them saying, "Hey, you earned this"? Maybe it was. Thank you.
Sure. I think it was.
Yeah, and so, I got a ring. They put me on the list for a ring. So that was cool. So I have a National League Championship ring that I wear with pride.
Right.
And I think it's the 20-year reunion next summer.
Wow.
Of that team. So I'll go up to St. Louis for that ceremony. That'll be cool.
Yeah. And the Cardinals still involve you in things, right? They still get a hold of you and like bring you up every once in a while and do stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've done the fantasy camp now for the last 6 or 7 years, which is fun. So cool. Yeah. And actually I got a text today. Coincidentally, you said that, from their alumni association. They want me to come sign autographs at the winter warm up, in January this year. So that'll be cool. I'll go back up there and do that. But yeah, I was feeling good. I was like, okay, they showed me a little love, and here we are now going into spring training 2005. Now again, I feel like a big leaguer. I go to spring training and I'm going about my business, and I think I had a little bit of a better spring training, but you never know, right? There's some new faces on the team. There's some old faces, same coaching staff, but this year I think, because you have about a month of workouts before the games start.
Yeah.
And so I'm going about my business, and there's no cuts being made or anything like that. But then And I think Lydia came to visit me at some point in the middle of spring training. And I think we had played maybe 15, 20 games. And I went to the park in the morning. Excuse me. I went to the park, and when you get there, they know before you do of who is being sent down from big league camp. Yeah. I wasn't released or anything, but I was being sent down to AAA, and the clubby's sitting there with all of your stuff already packed when you get there.
That's cold.
And so I walk in there, and I look at my locker, it's empty.
Well,
and I look over, and my bag's packed, and Rip Rowan's standing there, and he's like, shrugs. He's like, sorry, dude.
Sorry, man. Yeah.
So he's like, you get a day off, go home, and then report to minor league camp tomorrow. I was like, fine. So I go back to my apartment, and Lydia's there. She's like, what happened? I was like, I got sent down. So, but that, again, it just happened a little earlier. Yeah. That's what happened that year. And so it was just kind of like, that was the last time I was in St. Louis at big league camp. And the next year, I don't even remember what my stats were. I think it was maybe 280 in AAA. But again, 04 and 05, right? This next year that's coming up, but 04, I hit 300.
Yeah.
Next year.
This year you hit 269, 9 homers, 1 triple, 33 doubles. Another strong year, man.
That's pretty strong in AAA with,
Absolutely.
But again, there's no conversation of, whether it's through my agents or anything. I'm stuck now in AAA for 2 years when now my value is dropping.
Yeah.
You're at the big league level. And I realized at that point is like, I don't need to be in the Cardinal organization anymore. And at the end of that 05 season, they ended up, I think, releasing me.
Wow. Did you ask for it or they did it?
They did it.
Man. How quickly you fall out of favor, man. I mean, not less than 2 years before this, you're the belle of the ball in St. Louis.
It's
baseball is cruel.
It is cruel. But again, I don't know how much experience my agents had or what they were actually pushing for.
Right.
I didn't have like a mentor. I didn't have the relationship with an Edmonds or with a Roland at that level for them to say, you know what, Bo, you're getting done wrong. Go. You need to push.
Yeah, push for get out of here. You trade.
And that didn't happen 04. It didn't happen 05. And again, I don't know what those conversations were like behind closed doors.
Right.
But I wish that I had some better guidance at that time to say, you know what? I need to get out of here. Even though I was feeling it.
Yeah.
I needed someone to help me kind of articulate that, because again, a lot of stuff's out of my control, and what I'm controlling is on the field. But again, I didn't see the business side. I didn't have someone to lean on and talk through, or anyone proactively coming to me and saying, hey, you know what, you might need to have a conversation with your agent so that you can, find another place to play.
Gosh. And I read somewhere that at one point you attempted switch hitting. You talked about backup catching.
So when I was up there for the 3 weeks in 04, I was the third string emergency catcher.
Crazy. Have you ever caught before?
No. So I got a glove and I was catching bullpens.
Really?
I would go out when I wasn't playing. I'd go out in between innings when Matheny or Yachty had to put their gear on. I'd catch like 3 or 4. Really? And then whatever. I did that. I mean, I wanted to do anything that they wanted me to do to be in the big leagues. Yeah, I guess in the off season of between 2004 and 2005, I'm at the winter warm up in St. Louis, and Lydia and I were eating dinner one night, and LaRussa came through the restaurant, and he sat down with us, and he's like, hey, I would like you to, hey, how you doing? Hey, Bo, I'd like you to start hitting left-handed a little bit, try switch hitting.
Man, what a concept.
Literally for a month, and then come to spring training and see where you are. And I can't believe I forgot this. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, we can't miss this.
And I was like, 29.
Yeah.
Never hit left-handed before.
Just figure it out in a month, bud.
Yeah, just see what happens. So So I'm like, okay, again, thank you. I'll do whatever you say. You're the boss.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in the cage hitting right-handed, getting ready, and now I'm hitting left-handed. And the guys I was working out with are like, "Are you serious?"
What are you doing, dude?
Yeah. So I had a little bit of a regimen, doing some one-hand swings with a little bat, and then trying to learn how to hit. But again, it felt so awkward.
I bet trying to do that at 20.
Oh
even though
gosh.
you're a great athlete, just trying to figure that out is insanity.
No way. So I was trying. I go to spring training. This is again in 05. So I'm doing all these extra swings left-handed after the day's workouts. I never got in at bat left-handed.
Okay, I was wondered, if you did.
I was ready for that, and that would have been really weird.
Trippy, right? Just getting
Very
out
trippy.
of the box, man.
And I think Hal McRae was the big league hitting coach in 05, okay. And then George Kissel, who we talked about before, who taught like Vince Coleman and Ozzie Smith and Willie McGee, all those guys how to hit left-handed, was working with me and they had a little bit of a different philosophy on how to teach somebody. And so I was doing both of those and swinging my hand. I think I wore batting gloves only because my hands just couldn't handle the amount of swings that were going on.
Yeah.
So I had to do that. And I think there was a couple articles written. It's like Bo's switch hitting, like question mark.
Right.
And I think my only response to that is like, hey, I'm just trying to make a team. So I was asked to do this. It wasn't like I came up with it.
Yeah.
So, but I never got in a bat. And I think after 4 or 5 weeks, they kind of shut me down and said, thank you for trying, or at least Tony did. So I don't know. I really don't know where that came from. But again, I mean, am I all of a sudden going to be ready for the big leagues?
Are you kidding me? Like, what? I mean, you need. I mean, best case scenario, what? Like, you need a couple of seasons of an absolute best case scenario. You go down to like A-ball and figure it out and work your way back up. Like,
what the hell?
A couple of years. And like, I don't even know. That's a crazy thing to ask a 28, 29-year-old man.
Yes. So that was also crazy. So I'm glad you said that because I totally glossed over that.
Yeah.
But whatever. Hey, I tried it. But ended up getting released, at the end of 05, and I didn't have a job. And the first week of 06, Lydia and I got married. And when we went on our honeymoon, I did not have a job.
Man,
to play.
Were you surprised when you got released?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Was it at the end of the season or in the off season?
It was in the off season. No, it was in the off season.
So you just got the call and they said, "Hey, we're."
Well, and again, at the end of 05, right? At the end of 05, I feel like I still had some big league value, and I was almost like good. I got released, kind of thing. Like now I can go find another organization, who wants me, who would give me some time to develop, or hey, I've developed the last 2 years now in AAA with some pretty good numbers. Now I get another opportunity, and so I go on my honeymoon, and we come. Maybe it was on my honeymoon that I got the phone call. I think it was, where it's like, hey, the Rockies want to sign you, and let's work out the details when you get back from the honeymoon, kind of thing. And I was like, sweet,
great.
So I'm like, the Rockies, right? Hey, they're not like the Yankees or something, or they're not some other team that's has this winning tradition where if you hit 220, you're going to be lost in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So I signed with the Rockies. I don't get a big league invite, unfortunately, which stunk. Right. Yeah. So I went to minor league camp. I went down there like several weeks early to kind of just get my mind right. I'm a new organization. I wanted to prove to them that I was appreciative of an opportunity that I can perform. And so I had a good spring training. I played in a couple big league split squad games. Got to meet, a lot of those players there, a lot of guys who had some great success. And, but I ended up making the AAA team. Like I said, I hit a couple homers off Nomo.
Yeah.
And that was the final day, and I made the team, but I was not a starter.
Really?
Yep. I was not a starter. And So I'm playing out of Colorado Springs, and there's a first round pick who played second. His name is Jason Nix, and he was developing. Yep. And I think partly I was put on that team is to help him develop, because I really kind of just naturally progressed, or I naturally just gravitated toward, hey, let's talk about this game situation or whatever. Because he was, like I said, a first round pick. He was young. He was probably 23, 24. 25 years old, and here I am now 30. And so I didn't take him under my wing, because, I made it a point to kind of develop him in areas that he hadn't had experience. And I think partly I was on that team. So I was playing like 3 times a week, playing. I think I played outfield. I played third. Really? I played short. I played second. I was a true utility guy. Yeah. And I was doing okay. I just wasn't getting a lot of at bats. I don't even know what my stats were. I think I was hitting 250 something. I don't know.
I've got them. 252, 39 games, 115 at bats, 1 homer, 1 triple, 6 doubles. So
so not playing every day. Yeah. But kind of understanding what my role was there. And I think I had a conversation with them. I was like, hey, if I'm not going to play every day, like, what am I doing here? What plans do you have for me? I think that's when I started to be like, hey, I need to be a little bit more vocal.
Finding your voice. Yeah,
exactly. So I was like,
let you go.
I think we kind of went, I think I need to find another place to play if I'm not going to play every day. And again, I'm having conversations with my agents and stuff. And again, trying to push them a little bit of more of what I was thinking versus, what I think today. Like, there was just a lot of reaction from them. I don't know, again. So, a few days later after that conversation, he called me in. He's like, hey, we're going to give you your release, and, best of luck to you. We just don't have enough space for you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm in Colorado, and I thought I was going to sign. I made a few phone calls myself. I'll be honest. I made a few phone calls. I called the Marlins. There's a manager there, Dean Trainer. He was the manager of the AAA Marlins in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I talked to him a little bit, and I said, hey, look, I'm packing my stuff. I'm driving back to Memphis, but I'm in Colorado. I can go south, toward Albuquerque if you can make it happen. Because I think my agents were talking to them as well as the Rockies in the spring training, in the off season before I signed with them. So I knew there could have been a little bit of interest. So anyway, he ended up calling me while I was driving. He's like, look, I can't make this happen. Maybe in a couple of weeks or whatever. And I said, that's fine. So I get home, I called the Cardinals farm director, and we worked out a deal for me to play again with the Redbirds in second half of 2006. I lived here, my wife is here. It made a lot of sense. And so that was my second phone call, and we worked it out. And this is where I finished the season. And again, in 2006, if all the Cardinal fans are listening right now, they won the World Series in 2006. Right. So I'm in Memphis, but again, I have the same role now that I had in Colorado, where I'm playing a couple times a week.
Part-time. Yeah.
I'm playing third. I'm not playing second very often. Yes, I am. Sometimes I'm not, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it was really hard, but I was back with the Cardinal organization.
Right.
I think out of convenience, Blake, I'll be honest with you, out of convenience, and my agents didn't find another opportunity for me in those few days. So I was just happy to be at home and back at AutoZone. And the only walk-off home run I hit was against the Rockies that released me.
Okay.
Lydia sang this is really cool. Lydia sang the national anthem at the game.
That's cool.
And so it went to like the 15th inning, and I didn't even start the game. I came in like the 8th inning, and I got like 4 at bats. It was funny. And I ended up hitting a walk-off home run against that team. And we got an article written about us of a husband and wife duo who started the game and ended the game with her singing the anthem and me hitting a walk-off home run. That was kind of cool.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great story.
And just to note that my wife is not just like, oh, she can sing and she sang the anthem. She's a classically trained opera singer, and
She can for real sing. Yeah.
she went to Ole Miss on a music scholarship, vocal performance, and she's been doing musical theater for 20 years. It's really awesome, and she still does things, and she's always the star and the ingenue of the show, and it's been really fun to have her have a talent that we can share, and our boys kind of share a little bit, a combination of us. They like music, and we push a lot of music in our house.
Yeah.
And it's been nice for her to have that and to share with the boys and with me and stuff. So
that's really cool. You got you an Ole Miss Southern Belle, my man.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
That makes sense then, because you mentioned earlier that every year you go down to this art festival down in
Double Decker,
area, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that totally makes sense then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, the 06 season ends. I don't get called up. I'm not saying I expected to by any means, but again, I'm in AAA and can provide some value to the big league team, but that doesn't happen. And then, I get released again in the off season. And again, the roller coaster continues.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find another place to play, but now I'm like, man, gotten released 3 times.
Are you feeling it slip away?
A little bit, but I still have some energy. I still feel like I can play. I think I'm 30 or 31 now. And
you're going to be 30 in the next season. You're 29 at this point. You will be 30 in your next year.
So I think my agents end up calling me one day, and they're like, "Hey, we cannot get an organization to bite right now on you."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "We might have to go the independent route."
Oh man.
And I was like, "Really?" But I wanted to keep playing, and I felt like, and I didn't know a lot about independent ball. I just knew it wasn't affiliated, but the level was still, the competition was still good.
Some of them are really high level, like the Atlantic and right.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I went, the Atlantic League. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And I played at a really awesome place in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I want to say that there's nothing else to do there in that little township or whatever. There's some Amish country around there.
But we're missing a season here. We still have to go through the 2007 Baltimore, Chicago.
Dude, man, what am I, drunk? Well, no, this is that year. This is that year. I played.
Oh, you're right.
I played.
I apologize.
Are you drunk?
I don't know, man. It's the middle of the day. Am
I? I'm kidding. No, but
my bad. You're right.
That's okay. But you have the stats, so I don't blame you for saying something in front of you. So no, I go to this really kind of cool town in Amish country in Pennsylvania. Here I am. I got a host family again, crazy. And
the Atlantic League is known for having high end. This is guys that are AAA, former big leaguers. This isn't the lowest level of independent ball. This is the highest.
Well,
strong, right? What do you say?
Yeah, I would say, and again, I learned that when I got there, and I had conversations with my agents and stuff, and they actually had kind of a spring training, I think in Florida. And so there are a lot of teams down there, and I ran across a lot of guys that I played with or played against
hanging on
at the big league level, the AAA level. I mean, half those teams, like you said, were guys trying to get back.
Yeah.
And it happened literally every week that somebody would get snatched out of the Atlantic League or some of these other independent leagues back to organized baseball. And that was what sold me on it from my agents.
Sure.
To say, look, this is just an extra league to find your way back into organized ball. And I said, you know what, let's try it.
Sure.
So the fans were great. The travel was easy. It was some really good buddies, some really good baseball players and guys. The competition was good. I was kind of a little bit maybe on my high horse just a little bit, and I hope it didn't come off in how I acted, but I think it came off in my performance where I wasn't hitting 400 or something like that. I was hitting, 250 or something, like 270. I don't even know. Or 240 even. But I was playing every day. I was playing second. I grew my hair out a little bit. I brought back my little flavor saver.
Soul
and
patch, baby.
Yep, the soul patch, which my wife hated. So it was like, hey, I'm going back. I'm going to the ballpark again. I'm having a little bit of fun. There were some guys who really were like, "Whoa, you're here! This is great! Oh my gosh!" So I felt like it was a good place for me, and it kind of re-energized me a little bit.
Yeah.
In a good way. And so one day my agents called and they're like, "Hey, we got you out of there. The Cubs want to sign you, and you're going to go to AAA in Des Moines." I said, "Thank God, that's awesome." So we use this, right? I say we because we're all on the same team. We used this Barnstormer team to get me back, and it worked. And I was like, sweet. So I literally just packed my stuff, got in my car, and I'm like, said bye to my host family. I said, thank you for letting me stay in your they lived in like $1 million home in this awesome place where I had like my own house pretty much above the 4-car garage. It was awesome. I could come and go as I please. It was really nice. They were very hospitable and great. But so I packed my stuff and I'm driving to Des Moines and I'm calling on my friends and things like, "Hey, look, I'm back in. I'm going to the AAA. I'm feeling really good." And I get there and we're playing against the Redbirds in the first game, and I wasn't activated yet. So I got there, I got my uniform, and I don't think I even took batting practice. I think I got there right before the game started. So I put my uniform on. I just go to the dugout. We're playing there. Rick Ankiel hits 3 home runs in that game against us. And I saw him after. I was like, "Rick, dude, this is amazing. How you hit 3 homers?" He's like, "I don't know, man. I'm having a great time." Rick's just awesome. And so I'm on this team. I think I played 4 or 5 games in a row when I got there. And then I started to platoon a little bit. I think I was there 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I played first.
Really?
Yeah, I played first. I was like having a good time at first. But some really good players on that team. That was where I met Ryan O'Malley.
Our connection, yeah. Yep. The Ryan O'Malley was a guest on here a few episodes back. He absolutely has a wildly romantic baseball story as well. Check that out if you guys want to. But
please, Ryan's a great guy. We had the same agent. Ryan and I we were playing in Omaha, Nebraska. We went to what show? We went to a John Mayer concert together.
Yeah.
And I think he ended up having the room that was available for me to live in.
Oh, cool.
So we lived together for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
he's a great guy. Great, all-time great guy.
Totally agree. And which actually we reconnected a little bit. I messaged him a little bit after I listened to his podcast, your podcast with him.
Yeah.
So we kind of messaged back and forth. It was cool. But so we're playing. I'm playing. I'm doing okay. I think I'm starting to feel better. And then I don't play for like 3 or 4 days, and I go in and I was like, "Hey, everything good?" To the manager. I can't remember the manager's name. And he's like, "Well, yes, everything's good, but you haven't played because we're working out a trade and you're involved, or you could be involved. So you're not playing today. We'll know tomorrow," or something like that. It's like, "Well, thanks for telling me," because I didn't play for a couple of days.
Sure.
So I end up getting traded to the Orioles. I say goodbye to Ryan and the Cubs, which was fun. And I get traded to the Orioles. And again, this roller coaster continues of wanted and not being needed. And then, okay, now you're wanted again. Right. And so I packed my bags and actually I think I drove home from Des Moines, I think we were in Des Moines. I drove home and then flew to Norfolk, Virginia. So I saw my wife for a couple of days and then left home and went to Norfolk. And it was, again, it's a new beginning.
Yeah.
I think I've equated a lot of things that have happened in my life. Like, oh man, I just feel like you get traded and you get a fresh start. So I felt like I had a fresh start with the Cubs, and now I got to make all these relationships and I got to prove myself to them. And then now here a month later, I got to do it again.
Sure.
And so that was kind of tough, but, but I had done it before. I'm like, okay, I got to have a positive mindset here.
Yep.
And I go to Norfolk and I play the first day and I played every day. And I was like, this is great. I'm playing every day.
Yeah.
This could be the next organization that I could play in. Maybe
Here's my shot.
Here's my shot to finish the season. Because again, it's halfway through the year. And so I'm playing every day. I'm making some outrageous defensive plays.
Mm-hmm.
I'm diving every day. I'm playing, I'm like backhands. I'm, turning double plays. I'm whatever. I'm Mr. Second Baseman, but I'm not hitting great. And so I'm like, okay, but I'm playing every day. And then after about 10 games, they just stuck with me. And I'm thankful for that. It's not like after 5 games, like, this guy sucks. I wasn't playing every day with the Cubs. And that was, a month of platoon. And now I start to hit again.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting a hit. Now I'm getting another hit. Now I'm doing this. Now I'm doing that. Feeling really good. I think there was one game where we were on the road. I think we were in Durham, North Carolina. And I think I got 3 hits all on the first pitch, which was really kind of funny. And I remember this because we left Durham to go to Columbus, Ohio, something like that. I forget, but I just remember that it might have been 4 hits where I just saw the first pitch, boom, got a hit every time.
Yeah.
The next memory I have, and now I'm feeling better. I think I'm raising my average. I was hitting like 150. Now I'm hitting 220. And we go to Columbus, Ohio. We're playing against the Columbus Clippers. And I'm really starting to feel like I'm on the, I'm on the way up. I'm showing this organization I can play. I'm in AAA. Their big league team is in last place. Maybe this could be an opportunity for me.
Absolutely.
There's probably another month of the season left. Let's just keep going. So I'm getting hits and feeling better and playing good defense. We're playing against Columbus, and I hit a ball to the first baseman, and he has to backhand it in the hole towards second. And the left-handed pitcher, who's on a big league rehab, like 1 game or 2 games, he is covering first, and the pitcher throws the ball, and he catches it and then blindly puts his foot right on top of the bag as I lunge to beat the throw because I'm busting my butt down the line.
Yeah.
And I tumble because I land on his foot. And I cannot feel my ankle. And so I'm rolling around in the chalk and in the dirt, and I'm in the most pain I've been in, more than breaking bones in your hands. And the trainer runs over there, and I was like, just get me off the field. I don't want to sit here. And I don't want to sit here to get me off the field. So he takes me off the field and like quickly. I don't know why. I just said, get me out of here because I knew I did something to my ankle.
Yeah.
And I go in the clubhouse and we're evaluating me. And he's like, I think this is pretty serious. So I had an MRI the next day and I tore 3 ligaments in my ankle.
Man.
And I was like, that's now again, another devastation of I was on the right track.
Right. Derailed again.
Derailed. And it really, really stunk. My ankle was, huge and black and blue. And as soon as the swelling kind of reduced, the orthopedic, it's probably 2 weeks before the swelling went down. And orthopedic back in Norfolk was like, okay, you have 2 options. We can do surgery, which will lengthen your rehab, or we have a 50-50 shot that they're going to heal themselves.
Yeah.
And we'll know in the next 3 to 4 months if that's happening. Usually you'll be back and you could probably play at the beginning of next season. So I was like, let's take that shot then. I don't want to get cut. Let's see if that happens. And the signs were good as I went through my rehab here in Memphis at Campbell's Clinic with Dr. Barry Phillips, who's awesome. And the PT staff there was there. I was going, PT was like my job. Yeah. And so I was going there and, wearing a boot and going through all these kind of aggressive rehab, techniques to try to get me back. And I ended up getting back and being healthy, and the Orioles released me.
Man.
So I didn't even get to go to spring training the next year.
Man. What?
Yeah.
So what are we thinking at this point? Where are we at mentally?
Well, I think at this point I have two options, where I retire.
Yeah.
Or I try to go the independent route again and make another go of it, which happened the year before.
Did you give serious consideration to hanging them up?
I didn't want to. I didn't want to because I felt like I had enough energy and
still play.
My wife had a job and she was working, and we had been married now 3 years now that I've been playing. So, she's, we had many late night conversations. She's like, you got to give it a shot. You can't go back.
Yeah.
So I said, I love you. Thank you. I'll make this decision we'll make this decision together, and I'll keep playing one more year. So my agents found me a job in outside Chicago at Schaumburg Flyers. Yep. Who else played for Schaumburg? Do you know anybody?
Actually, O'Malley ended up signing with them a year or two before you or after you, or right around that time. But other than that, I don't know. But I ended up playing for the Boomers, which became the Flyers became the Boomers a few years after you.
That's so crazy.
I know.
But yeah, O'Malley played for them. That's crazy. So, I mean, it was very different from the first, from the Barnstormers in the Atlantic League. It was very different.
This is the Northern League, like a step down a little bit from the Atlantic.
I would think so. So again, my career is now regressing again.
Right.
And I think Lydia and I had talked about, if I don't get signed out of here, this is going to be my last year. And I think I could be okay with that.
Yeah.
So just having that realization, I'm 32 now, or I'm about to be 32.
I've got you at 31 here.
Yeah. I'm about to. So 32 in September. So I'm 31. I'm keep playing, and I'm on a team that, good dudes on the team. Not a lot of chemistry. A few guys trying to get back to independent ball. A few guys that played A ball.
Yeah.
Some guys are right out of college. It's a little different.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like the veteran on the team, and so I just tried to play. I didn't try to be a leader, but I tried to lead by example, and just go about my business in a professional way. And I wasn't hitting great, 250, something like that. And I think I started to realize, I was like, okay, I'm not, if I was hitting 330, 340,
different story. Yeah.
It's a different story, but I wasn't. Pitching was pretty solid, to be honest. But again, I'm getting older, and I think I don't know if I lost a step with the injury, but I'm never going to use that as a crutch, no pun intended, but I'm never going to use that for any of why I didn't perform. But I wasn't having a great time. Let's just be honest.
I understand. Yeah. A few years before, you're in the big leagues doing your thing, and you think you're competing for a spot in the show, and then here you are a few years later in independent ball. And I imagine that's got to be a cold dose of reality.
I think it was, and again, like you said, it's a young man's sport. It truly is. Now I'm in my early 30s. I'm like, okay, this is probably it. So, halfway through the season, I'm just going about my business. We're on a road trip. It was only like an hour away. So we get off the bus at like 1 a.m. and I'm like gathering my things, and we're in the parking lot, and the assistant coach is like, hey, Bo, manager, or whatever. I forget the manager's name. He's like, hey, wants to talk to you. I was like, really?
I wish you could see the look he just gave me. We're looking at each other via Zoom.
And I was like, really? So I go in, I put my stuff in my locker. I go in his office, and he's like, hey, look, it's just not working out. We're gonna go ahead and release you. And I won't say I was surprised, but I kind of was, because maybe a week before then, or 2 weeks before then, he got kicked out of a game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Bo, you're now managing the team. And I was like, wait, what? he's like, he's the pitching coach. He's my assistant, the pitching coach. You are the manager of the team. And I was like, okay. So he handed me like the card. I think I wasn't playing that day randomly.
Right.
And he's like, so I got to coach third and I'm doing the signs and sending people to the plate and, making, the pitching coach made the pitching changes, but that was kind of funny. But and I didn't mean to be rude to him when he told me that they were going to release me. I don't know if we didn't have a conversation.
Yeah.
I just said,
okay. Like, just like whatever.
I said, I think I said, I didn't say whatever. I think I just said, that's about right. So I shook his hand. I shook the other guy's hand and I said, and they said, good luck to you. I said, good luck to you. And I walked out.
Man.
And now, I go to my apartment. I call Lydia. She's like, really? And I said, yeah. I said, this just doesn't look good. And I'm like, I'm going to come home tomorrow. And so that night, or it wasn't that night because it was late. So it was the next day I'm packing and I get a phone call from a manager of another team in the league. And the Kansas City T-Bones. Do you know anybody who played for the Kansas City T-Bones?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is another one of our connections where I lived in the Kansas City area. I tried out for the Kansas City T-Bones at one point.
So crazy.
There's a lot of things that are connected. I'm not even.
I love it.
I don't want to sound insane on here, but
I love it. Where did you play?
Oh, this isn't about me, but
I know.
Multiple. I kicked around independent ball a lot. I was with Schaumburg. I was with the team in the Pecos League. I was with Windy City Boomers in the Frontier League. I was on a team in the Freedom League in the Phoenix area. So Phoenix is another connection we have.
Well, I think my point here to ask you that is that we were just playing at different times too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool in some of the same cities, which is really neat.
Yeah.
But so he called me. He's like, hey, I might be able to work this out. We just had our second baseman get signed to go play A-ball. Mm-hmm. And we have a spot. So let me call you, later today or tomorrow. I might be able to work this out. And I said, okay. And the joke that I made with him is like, look, I'm driving down, I-55, or whatever the interstate was. I said, but you better get me before I turn toward Memphis.
Yeah.
Cause if I pass your exit, I might just keep going home. And we had a laugh about that. But, he called me the next day and he's like, look, I got a spot. Come on down. We'd love to have you on the Kansas City T-Bones. So I drove from Chicago to Kansas City and it was great. Like,
yeah, you played really well. Hit 286, 8 bombs. Like, playing well, man. Strong.
So it was, and I know we're going into a lot of details here, but the way I felt walking into that clubhouse was very different than the way I felt in the Schaumburg clubhouse.
A better environment.
It was a better run organization.
Yeah.
I mean, in Schaumburg, I was out there fixing the batter's box. I was watering the infield before batting practice because they just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play on a nice surface. I wanted the guys to feel like they could be proud of their field. Now, I wasn't mowing the yard or anything like that, but I wanted the dirt to play as well as it could, and have the batter's box be nice. So, but when I got to
all right, we're picking it back up at the very tail end of Mr. Bo Hart's professional career here. We are finishing out strong with the Kansas City T-Bones here. We were talking a little bit about how you were having to do some of the groundskeeper work when you were at Schaumburg.
Well, yeah, nobody asked me. I just went out there, put my shower shoes on, grab a bag of sunflower seeds and my iPod. And I think there were iPods back then. But I just wanted to play on a better field, because nobody was watering it. And when you play on a dry field, the balls don't bounce very well.
Right.
So I was just doing my part. But anyway, so I ended up signing with Kansas City and going to T-Bones, and it was a great area. But the feeling I got going to that clubhouse was very different. Schaumburg was just kind of the bare minimums, right?
Yeah.
Kansas City was like, man, they know what they're doing here. The clubby has a great idea.
Yeah.
The players, there's really good chemistry here, and there were some other names like Ken Harvey
Oh
was
wow.
on
Yeah.
this team.
Yeah.
And I remember playing against Ken Harvey in the minor leagues, and he would hit like 340 in the minor leagues, coming on his way up in A-ball, double-A and stuff. And then my first week in the big leagues, he was playing for Kansas City. He was playing first. So all these videos that I have, I'm running past him,
Yeah.
and we're having a moment like, hey, Bo, nice job. Good to see you. You know, that kind of thing. And then he was an American League All-Star.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break, right? Ken Harvey. Great.
So were you guys looking at each other like, what are we doing here?
Well, no, we're like, hey, we're on the same team, so it's not so bad here. Like we kind of, it kind of allowed us to feel like, okay, I feel good here. I'm not the only one who's been in the big leagues before trying to make their way back, and that was comforting,
sure.
you know. But the team was solid. The manager had a better idea, I believe. The stadium was great. It was at an MLS soccer field, so it was all grass.
Yeah,
like really short dwarf Bermuda grass. Like it was probably an awesome soccer field to play on, but it was awesome baseball because it played really well.
Yeah, beautiful.
There was only dirt around the bases and the home plate and the mound, and everything else was grass. So it was really fun to play on that field.
Sure.
And I feel like the first 7 or 8 games I was there, I hit like 5 or 6 homers. Like it was weird. Like I think I was just like, this place is better. And there was like pop, pop, pop.
Yeah.
Hitting homers and hitting well and feeling really good. I was like, okay, I got my mojo back a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I started to just accept, hey, this is where I am. This is where I'll finish my career. Cause I said, hey, if I don't get signed out of here, I'm not going to play anymore.
Yep.
So I'm feeling good. Second half of the year, making good plays, good team chemistry, and we ended up making the playoffs there, and it was really great. And we had a good playoff run, and we ended up going to the championship. I hit a really key grand slam in the second round of the playoffs to go to the it was in the finals. Yeah, it was against that team. It was like game 1 or game 2 of a 5-game series.
Yeah.
It was at our place. Last home run I ever hit was a bomb off a former big leaguer. So I was feeling good.
Yeah.
I was contributing to this team. I was feeling really, really, I think, just better than I had felt in a long time. Not only with my performance, but just with this team and feeling good. And so we ended up making the playoffs. We ended up winning the championship. I get a ring, and we were playing in Gary, Indiana, at a pretty nice field.
At the Railcats?
The Railcats, that's right.
Oh yeah,
that's right. So
I know Indy ball well, man. I was the Indy ball grinder.
So we played the Railcats, and there were some good guys. And again, there's not that many teams. There's like 8 teams in the league, so you play them all the time, and you're building camaraderie, and hey, good to see you again, that kind of thing. And so we had played them a lot, and we ended up winning, and just champagne party and having a great time, and a great after party for that win, and it was just like a good culmination of the end of my career.
Absolutely.
And
finish on a strong, positive note.
Yeah. And again, it was really the contribution that I was able to make. I wasn't just on that team. I was starting and playing second, and a veteran, and playing well. And it was the best way to go out. Now, if I feel, is to win a championship, and they asked me to come back the next year, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going to honor that. And I felt right about it. I could have kept playing, and I just said, you know what, I'm done, and I can call it a career.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you finished it out there. Maybe not, I'm sure you would have liked to end your career in the big leagues, but I'm happy that you made the best out of the situation that you had in front of you there.
I really tried, and it was okay. Yeah.
And then, so you felt at ease, at peace when you walked away from the game.
I did. I remember having a moment in the dugout, there's no fans. I think there was a few players in the dugout. I just kind of sat there and just kind of soaked it in. I soaked in my last at bat too.
Yeah.
Like they called my name and it was like the, bottom of the 8th inning or top of the ninth, or no, it was top of the 9th inning. And I'm glad I got another at bat because the other one, I didn't get a hit. I didn't get a hit in my last at bat either, but I remember just kind of standing in the on deck circle. I was like, this could be my last at bat because we're about to win this game.
Yeah.
And so I stood there and like the umpire and the catcher, like look at me and they look at each other and they look at me and they're like, what's this guy doing? And so I just took like an extra 5 or 7 seconds and just, and then I just kind of thought about it and walked to the plate. And I ended up hitting a jam shot to the third baseman off a sidearm guy throwing 82. It was not a great way to go out because I broke my bat. Broke my bat, and the third baseman didn't even move, and it was like the slowest line drive ever that he just caught chest high, and I was 2 steps out of the box, and I was like, well, that'll do. But I hated facing sidearm guys.
Me too.
So that was it. I mean, I felt good. I came home and celebrated, and it was fine. It was fine. I had no urge to keep playing.
Yeah.
I felt like, hey, that was a good way to go out. But like I said, they called and said, hey, you want to keep playing? We'll have you. They called a couple of weeks later or a couple of months later. I was like, no, I'm good. I said, thank you. I got my ring in the mail. I didn't go there for the ceremony.
Yeah.
And I still have it. I got 3 rings, and over my career, my 10-year career, I felt a lot of great memories, and having this opportunity to talk through all these memories and just kind of get a little bit deeper has been awesome.
Has it been good for you? I mean,
yes, it has, of course. And
awesome.
Lydia,
the whole goal of some of this.
and Lydia listened to the first one last night or yesterday, and I think she's listening to the second one today while she's working. But she's like, man, there's a lot of things in there that I never heard before, or you went another level deeper than you had in the past when you told me that story. And I said, that's what this is all about.
It is.
And
I mean, you're never going to get to sit down and talk about your career for hours at a time, right? Nobody does that.
No, but nobody wants to hear that.
This sitting though, like, your sons are going to always have this, right? Isn't that cool? Like, they're always going to be able to reference back to this. They're never going to get dad to talk about his baseball career for 6 hours at a time or whatever, but they can always have this.
And I totally agree. And it has been a little therapeutic, and there's been some things that I've heard from some of the interviews that you've had from guys in the organization that I hadn't heard before, and made me think. And there's not, I stepped away from the game for a long time. And I think that's maybe why I didn't pursue coaching. I think maybe I could have been a minor league coach. I didn't want to start over and do the grind again from the rookie ball to A ball. I wanted to find another career, I guess. Yeah. But again, I think I was a little bitter back then when I stepped. Yeah. And I needed to step away because I think for years I was watching games on TV. I'd be like, man, that guy's still playing.
Yeah.
I thought I was just as good as he was,
Yeah. It's so easy to get into that mind frame, right? Once you're done, like, man, I'm done with baseball. Like, forget baseball. And then you kind of slowly, or at least I did, gradually came back to it. Like, I love this game.
Totally. And what brought me back to a different level that distracted me is like after, that next spring after I retired, the next winter, spring, I ended up started coaching at a high school in addition to the 9-to-5 job that I had.
And you did that for a while. I read at least.
I still am doing it.
Yeah.
And,
awesome.
And it's been great. It's a private high school in Memphis called MUS, Memphis University School. And I've done it 14 years, I think. So. And
you do some hitting stuff on the side too, or have?
Yeah. I have 2 summers ago, I put a batting cage in my backyard for my boys.
That's awesome.
And I turfed it, and it's got lights, and it's great. And I started to do lessons because, Cruz was doing awesome in the, coach pitch, and I kept a low profile coaching too. I didn't want everybody to know, I play in the big league, that kind of thing. I just wanted my kid to be able to play and had a great time. And I had some of the dads ask, like, your kid's great. It's like, well, I used to play a little bit, so I've been working with him, and I remember this one kid that he was standing at the plate, and I was walking because I coached third for the coach pitch, and so I was walking by him, and I kind of put my hand on his helmet, and I was like, okay, this is what I want you to do, Lucas, and I want you to do this and that, and he's like, okay, because he was kind of struggling a little bit, and do you know what I'm talking about? Like if we do this, that, and he's like, yeah, I can do it. Okay, I said, all right, boom, first pitch hits a ball over the outfielder's head, and his dad asked me after the game, he's like, what did you tell him? Like,
yeah.
Can I, what do I need to keep telling him? And I told him. And then like the next week he's like, hey, do you want to, could you work with him or something like that? And I think that's kind of how it started.
Organically,
where I wanted, I was like, hey, yeah, because I'm trying to help all these kids and including my own. And so it kind of blossomed from there. And now I think I have like 18 kids that I give lessons to.
That's awesome. Good
yeah.
for you. Yeah.
But again, it's not a job. It feels really, I love it. I have 5 lessons tonight and I have 5 lessons tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
This is the last week that I'm doing it until over the holidays and stuff. But it has drawn my kids to the cage a little bit more during times as well, which is fun. And again, it's really fun, but I do like coaching, and I started coaching again right after I was done. So I got to put the uniform on, and I got to, pass on some knowledge to some high school hitters, and some good players have come through, and it's been really good. It's been really good, and then we might need to continue this because I didn't have boys when I was playing, and like to touch on some of those things as they have gotten older, but who knows? But I think my playing career and, getting a real job 2 months later after I retired, I was, I got a job at a headhunting kind of company. That's what I kind of called it then, but it's a staffing firm. Uh-huh. And I was a recruiter, and I was like, I kind of was like, my ego was a little shot, but I knew that, hey, I've been married now. I got a mortgage. I gotta find something. Sure. And wasn't making a lot of money at all independent. My wife was working a job she didn't want to work, but she had to because she was making good money. And I said, let me get a job, and then just give me a little time, and then you can quit this terrible job you don't like. And so I started recruiting, and I took naturally to it. I wanted to be in sales though. Yeah. So a year later I got an opportunity to interview for a sales job, and I got a sales job. And then after I think 2 or 3 more years, Lydia could quit her job because I was making more than she was. And it turned into a really good career. And that's still what I'm doing now, just with a different company.
Well, I mean, you in Memphis with the Redbirds, in sales, I think that's just that's a win-win-win for everyone there, right?
Well, to be honest, it didn't come up as often as I thought it would.
Really?
And I never really led with that, I'll be honest. It was not something that I was like, hey, I work for this company, but you might remember me from...
You might remember me from 2003.
It happened. It happened a few times. And when I was doing, for a half a season, I did some radio for the Redbirds.
I read that.
And so that was kind of cool. Yeah. And I did have a client say, your voice sounds really familiar. And I'm like, okay. And it finally came out that he's like, I was listening to the Redbirds game last night. I was like, well, yeah, that's, I do the broadcast. He's like, what? So, and then I played and, for years and that kind of thing. So it didn't come up as often, but it did come up from time to time for sure. But I don't think it gave me any advantage business wise.
Another cool connection we have, the current manager for the Memphis Redbirds, Ben Johnson, former big leaguer, was my manager in independent ball, his first year in independent ball, or his first year as a manager in pro ball. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Yeah. Ben and I, Ben's from Memphis.
Yeah, he's going to come on at some point. He's going to be a guest.
That's so cool. Yeah. Ben and I played instructional league in '99 together. Okay. He was a high round draft pick. And,
he's a big deal.
Yeah. And so, he played with the Padres, I think, didn't he? Is that right?
Padres and Mets. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So great player, great dude. And when we go down there, we always say hi to him for sure.
So tell me a little bit about the wife and kids, you've already given us quite a bit about Lydia and the Brock Star and Cruz, and or should I say again, Lou Brock Jr. That's an all-time story, man. I still need you to send me that. You got to send me that picture.
Okay.
If you come across it. That's so cool.
Lydia's been awesome. Marrying, I guess, a professional athlete. He's kind of was at the peak for a while and then come down. She's just always been, she helps me think a little bit more critically than I do naturally at times.
Yeah.
And she has made some really great points and some things that have helped me have my voice. And it's been great. She's born and raised in Memphis. Her name's obviously Lydia, and her family's all from here. And it was great, to just be accepted into her large family. And, we got a house, we got married and bought a house all in the same week. Like it just kind of worked out that way. And we started our life, and it was great. And, I think when I was done playing, that's when we was like, hey, maybe we should start, thinking about a family. Cause I didn't want to have a family while I was playing, at least at that point. If I was in the big leagues, that'd be easy. Right. But in the minor leagues with the family, traveling around or missing out, I did not want to do that. So, but, we struggled to have a child because, fertility issues that went undiagnosed. So there's no reason why. They can't tell us. It just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So we had to go, the in vitro route, and we did that, and it took us 8 years to have 2 boys or 2 children that ended up being boys.
What a blessing.
So that was a struggle, and that brought us closer together as a couple and as a unit, as a parental unit. And, it's been really great. She has really brought me over from the go with the flow, don't say anything kind of dude, like, yeah, that's fine, to hold on, I actually do have an opinion on something. She has taught me how to have an opinion, which has been really great. And I've taught her to kind of go with the flow a little bit more than she did before we met. So we've had some really good times. We've been married. Our 18-year anniversary will be in January next month. So, but having boys, I mean, if I had girls, it wouldn't have mattered, but having boys, she wanted to have boys. I think deep down, she's kind of a guy's girl. She had more dude friends growing up, and in college and things when she was at Ole Miss and in high school before that. She's been great. She went to school to be a teacher. Actually, obviously for the music too, but she became a teacher. Yeah. She taught for a couple years. And then got into kind of the corporate world and was managing a company or an office here for a national company, and just didn't like it. And I was glad that I had an opportunity to start a career after baseball and to get her out of that. And so she hasn't needed to work since then, since I started making a good living, after baseball and it's been really great. We bought another home. We had Cruz, which was a blessing to us and was great. And we just knew that we needed a little bit of a bigger house out in the burbs. And so before we had Brock, we got another house. That's where we are now. And she's the best mom. She really is. I mean, being a teacher, she kind of understands the developmental brain of children, and with the music that she has in her heart, she's the best mom ever. She really is. I couldn't have chosen a better life partner and mom than her. She loves baseball, and she's not an athlete. I'll give you that. I'll say that she's not an athlete at all, but sharing a talent really we've had a lot of great conversations and discussions about growing up in a talent world and competition and what ifs and things like that, because she's really super talented, and she just didn't have the resources to try to go outside of Memphis to pursue that at all. But there's a pretty good theater community here with some stars, and she's done, like I said, she's done some great shows that I've been able to go watch her do her thing while she got to watch me do my thing.
Oh, that's awesome. You get to support her, like just like she supported you.
Exactly.
Love
exactly.
it. Man, this has been amazing. To kind of wrap this up here, I've got some Q&A. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. And then, so I had one clip that I wanted to use, but in the moment, it wasn't the right emotion when we were talking about your spring trainings and kind of trying to make the team. But I think it's a funny clip, and I'd love to play it now. It's Mark DeJean, and it's the story is the greatest manager ever. Ready for it?
Sure.
Right. Here we go, buddy.
And he'll tell you this. I used to, when I managed in this is true story, I managed in AA, and he was on that team. I used to always say, we get on a bus and we take a road trip somewhere, whether it's Binghamton or, Trenton, wherever. And I always get on the bus and I would tell them, I said, fellas, I'm going to just tell you something. And I'd always, I'd kid with them. I was kidding, I'd say, let me just tell you something. I said, I'm the best manager in the history of the world. And they would laugh and stuff, and I would, I said, and I would tell them all the time, I'm the best manager, I said, in the history of the world. And I would tell them, I said, and that includes Tony La Russa. I said, the only difference between Tony La Russa is opportunity. He got one, I didn't, and I would always, and they would laugh and stuff, and I would tell them all the time. Of course, I was just kidding around, that was just me. That was, I would say do things that, gosh, that I look back at it now and go, geez, what the heck were you doing? But anyway, so now, now he has that time in the big leagues. He gets called up to the big leagues. Well, I had been on Tony's staff, so one day in spring training, I'm sitting in Tony's office, and I'm talking to Tony, and Bo Hart walks in, and I said he walks in and says, hey, Bo, hey, DJ, and Tony said something to him, and I said to him, and I don't know, I shouldn't have done this, but I said to him, I said, hey, Bo, so let me ask you a question. He said, who's the best manager in the history of the world? And he looks at me, he looks at Tony, he looks back at me, he looks back at Tony again, and he looks at me and he goes, you are. And Tony,
that's great.
Tony got the ass. Oh, Tony didn't like that. Tony said, wrong answer. Swear to God, wrong answer. 2 weeks later, Bo was back in Memphis.
I hope we can laugh about that. I don't know. Can we?
Of course. Of course. I just played along. That's all I did. It's kind of an inside joke between them or whoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everybody that played for him. So I was playing along, and we had a laugh, but we all laughed about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great quote here. Are you ready for the Q&A, my man?
Let's do it. Yeah.
This is a fun way to take us out here.
Okay.
When you were doing your dang thing in the big leagues, what did Mitchell Page say anything to you? What does a big league hitting coach say to you while you're doing that? Does he just leave you alone?
No. I think there's plenty of discussions. I think it's during batting practice. It's those little reminders that you would think would happen with any level of baseball when you're actually getting prepared for the game. It's like, hey, let that ball travel a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. It's just not every swing.
Yeah.
Or, you finish a round and you don't have a good round. It's like, hey, make sure you swing at the right pitches. And I want to say it's all cliche based, but it wasn't. I want to say that there was some deep conversations at some point. But again, the experience that I had and the success that I was having, there was no reason for him to insert himself into that. Yeah. And I think it maybe a month into it, because everyone's just like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. I think later, that's when it's like, hey, how are you feeling? What are you seeing? Let's try to get you back on track kind of thing. But no, he was very supportive and high-fiving me and but reminding me of those things to try to get me back in a good frame of mind. Yeah. If I went 0 for 10 or 2 for 30 or whatever it was like, hey, remember the things we need to, let the ball travel. And swinging good pitches and that kind of thing. But no, he was influential in a positive way for sure.
I love to hear it. Best baseball movie of all time.
Bull Durham.
I agree.
I think it's pretty close in a Hollywood way.
Yeah.
But I think didn't the director play minor league baseball?
He did. Ron Shelton. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Lydia loves that movie too. If anytime she suggests or I suggest, hey, you want to watch Bull Durham, we both say yes for sure.
I love that. Worst baseball movie.
Worst. I gotta think it's like, what's that one with the kid who like threw 100 or something?
Rookie of the Year.
I don't think I even got through that movie.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah, no offense to that kid, but I think that's like not even real.
What did you do on plane rides? Like cards, stories? Like what'd you do when you were in the show?
It was movies. So
movies, okay.
Yeah, it was movies, or it was Will Ferrell. Because again, in 2003, I was only in big leagues for a handful of months, and in the big leagues, there are rules of who can sit where. And so Dan Heron and he got called up 9 days after I did. And we were there for the rest of the season. So we spent some time together, and on the plane, we had to share a row. So we couldn't have our own row. And that was for the guys that had been there before. So that was just a rule. So we had a portable DVD player. That was my first big league purchase. It was super expensive, but it was a portable DVD player, and I went and bought one.
Okay.
And so we had a bunch of DVDs. And so we were watching like the best of Will Ferrell.
Oh man.
We would watch Old School. We
Classic.
watched all this kind of stuff. And then, if it's late, I'm watching kind of the normal Mission Impossibles and Indiana Joneses and all that kind of stuff. But the plane rides were super cushy, as you might imagine. Like we would get on, they'd say, hey, what do you want to dinner or for dinner? I'd say, give me, can I have 2 fillets and, a triple vodka cranberry? Like, let's do it right. And so, we got a 3 or 5 hour flight, there's no connection. So it's our chartered flight. So, you just try to relax from what was going on in the game or whatever. But no, you want to kind of just, take a break from baseball for an hour or two and get some, not necessarily get some rest, but it's, I'm watching movies and, eating well and having a couple drinks.
Favorite players growing up?
I mean, it's got to be the whole lineup of the Oakland A's, the Bash brothers.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a cool story. I'm glad you asked that. So, obviously McGuire and Canseco and, Ricky Henderson and Dave Henderson and Carney Lansford and Ron Hassey and Mike Gallego and Walt Weiss, like Dave Stewart. And this was in 2003, and I'm sitting at my locker and I'm getting interviewed by a reporter. And I think he asked me a question like that. He's like, hey, so who did you like? I want to write a story, about you. And, who did you like growing up? And I'm telling him a story about the A's. And I was like, I love watching Walt Weiss play. He played shortstop, and that's what I was playing when I was growing up. And, he was always diving and just making these amazing plays. And I looked up to him and wanted to be him, and just always dirty. And, I always wanted to play like him. And so the next day I'm sitting in my locker, and Russ Springer was a relief pitcher for us.
I remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Great dude. Country guy. Awesome. And he taps me on the shoulder. And he's like, he hands me his cell phone. He's like, hey, Bo, here. Somebody wants to talk to you. And I look at his phone. It says Walt Weiss on it.
Oh man, what a cool moment.
And I had to go, oh, what? Wait, what? He's like, I heard your interview yesterday.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, what? So I got to have this conversation with Walt Weiss in the middle of my magic moment that you coined for this podcast. I got to have a conversation with Walt, and he was so complimentary to me and just told me to like enjoy the ride, live it up, you be you. I'm watching you. I love watching you play. Like, just to hear that from Walt Weiss, are you kidding?
Wow. Yeah, you kidding me?
Just to say that he enjoyed watching me play because I enjoyed watching him play. It was like I was like
Surreal.
it was incredible. I'm glad you asked that because I was thinking about the other day. It's like I forgot to tell the Walt story, and so so it was like a 10-minute conversation, and
Yeah.
and I handed the phone back to Russ, and I was like, "Thank you for doing that." He's like, "Walt's a friend of mine."
Wow.
And I called him, and after I heard that interview yesterday, and I was, he's like, let me talk to him. He's like, he wanted to talk to you. So that was really cool. And then later he was like an infield instructor with the Rockies. So during spring training, minor league spring training, I got to have a couple conversations with him and talk to him and stuff, and spend a little bit of time with him, which was really cool and special for me.
That's a really cool story. I appreciate you giving us that. Best baseball video game of all time, if you played them.
Yeah, RBI baseball and Nintendo. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, the MLB, the show that I'm playing now in 2023 with my boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's realistic and cool, but
do you make yourself?
Nothing beats RBI. Did I make myself?
Are you making yourself in the show now?
No. Can you?
Are your boys?
Can you make players?
Oh yeah, you can.
Oh man, we're doing that tonight. I'm doing that.
Road to the show. Yeah, buddy.
Okay, perfect. We're doing that. Thank you for that. But no, RBI baseball was definitely the best game. NHL '94 though was the best game
like on
ever.
Sega.
It was on Nintendo,
Nintendo,
I think it was on Nintendo. But I love playing that game. But best baseball game was RBI for sure.
That is a great one. What intro music did you use?
Oh yeah. So I did use. So let's see. I think it was before. So I think right when I came up, I don't know what song. I didn't choose one. I think they gave me one for a little bit, but then I got wind of Murphy Lee. He's a lunatic.
Yeah,
he's a Nelly. Saint Lunatic. So I never met Nelly, but I thought I was going to at one point. I think we had an appearance at the same time, and he never showed up or something like that. But Nelly. Murphy Lee had a hit.
It's a Midwest Swing. Is that what it was?
No, it was What the Hook Gonna Be? That's what it was.
What the Hook Gonna Be? I remember it. Oh man!
So I got
I
got an early release of that before it was even released on the radio. Somebody gave
exclusives.
Yeah, cool. And so I got to walk to the plate to that song for a while, but then it just kind of wasn't me, right?
Yeah.
And it was cool, and I thought that was really fun. But the song that stuck for me in St. Louis was the Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And so. And I made a joke not too long ago, actually, that song now is kind of, the bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of arenas now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I walked to the plate to that song for the rest of the season, I think. And I'd like to think that I might have had something to do with that becoming more of a sports song. Because cool, I remember people clapping to it, and in a pitcher that I played against that year, who later played on the Cardinals, Jeff Suppan, really good dude, great dude.
Yeah.
He told me a spring training story of man, I heard that song and I'm like, damn, here comes Bo again to the plate, kind of thing. He sang the song, so he's listening, at least it stuck in his head, and I think that's just kind of cool. But yeah, Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. It was the intro was awesome. But I used a bunch of different ones in the minor leagues and toward the end of my career. But that was the best one.
And we've already talked about it. I believe you said the S318 was your favorite bat model of all time.
Agreed. Yeah.
Did you do anything to bats? Did you bone them or anything like that, or shave them down or anything?
No, maybe in the minor leagues when you are just messing around on the porcelain. You're on the sink. You're kind of pushing the grains back together.
Yep.
But no, it was one cool thing though. I adopted a color model, and which is really cool. So I had a couple pink bats that were I had a couple Cardinals, like Matheny had some red bats that were made, they were stained kind of pink or wine, right? Is what it was.
Yeah.
And then I ran across a player, I forget where it was, but he said that his dad played, and that's how he stained his bats, which is really cool. And it was in AAA. I think it was in like an '05 or it was in Memphis, or it was '06. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. But his bats were all dark brown stained with no foil on the writing. And it was called the Foster model.
Interesting.
And so my bats were cupped, though. So they were 33, 31 and a halves, and the Foster staining. And it was just dark brown on dark brown. And it was really kind of cool. And that's kind of what I went out with my career was that model, or that staining of the S318s.
Love that. And this was perfect segue. I'm so impressed that you raw dogged it your whole career. No batting gloves. Can you talk about that? What I'm most impressed about is just, of course it feels awesome to get the feel of your actual hands on a bat, but the amount of swings it takes to be a professional baseball player is where I'm most impressed with, because I don't know how your hands held up. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I didn't pee on him, if that's what you're going to ask, because that I think would have helped. I think Moises Alou used to pee on him, and I think a bunch of other ones because of the ammonia, I guess, or whatever would strengthen your hands. But I never did that. Maybe like once or twice. But
I tried it too, dude.
But I like the feel of the bat in my hands. I tried batting gloves way early I want to say even in college or high school, but I didn't like the way the bat felt in my hand. I wanted to feel, and especially with a wood bat, you feel the grains a little bit. And I didn't use a lot of maple. I did dabble in it a little bit, but I always felt better with ash.
I liked ash too.
So I liked it, and I just felt like it was a more simpler way, because the guys are messing around with their gloves and all the time. I got to tighten them again, and then I got to take them off, and then I got to put them back on, and then they get sweaty. Nomar is the extreme.
Right.
But I just felt like I just didn't want to mess with that either, and I just felt like I had a better feel of the bat with my hands. But again, I didn't have a lot of calluses. My hands would crack from time to time. And I put super glue on them, but
you talked about tape in specific places to keep from blistering.
It was my left hand on these two fingers. I would put a piece of tape here and a piece of tape here and there. I think it really offset a little bit. But
were you heavy on like the Moda stick and like pine tar and stuff like that?
No. I put a little bit of pine tar with some dirt and then and some dust. Really, it wasn't dirt. It was like the dust. And I could just tap the bat and get the grip that I needed, or I'd grab a bunch of dirt and dry my hands off and then pick the bat up and maybe a little spit here and there. But I that's just the only way that I felt the most comfortable with the bat in my hand was without gloves on.
Love that. In a different world and different timing, is there a part of you that thinks that you could have been, Jose Oquendo's nickname was a secret weapon. He could play all the positions when he played. I always loved that nickname. I always thought you could have been the secret weapon part 2. Is there a part of you that thinks, different circumstances, you could have had a longer big league career?
Yeah, different circumstances. Yeah, if I was in a different organization at a different time, I think someone paid a compliment to me not too long ago. I had a really good friend, actually Noka, had a conversation with a former big leaguer at a party in LA, and they were talking, because Noka loves baseball, of course, and he was talking, and this other guy just kind of paid these compliments to me, and it's just like, it's amazing Bo didn't get more of a shot. If he played now, he'd have a 10-year career, which was really good for him to, for me to hear that. I heard that in October this year, so 2 months ago. So, different circumstances, but then again, my life wouldn't have been the way that it is now, and I wouldn't change this for anything. I love my family, and of course, if I had more time in the big leagues, things would have changed. It would have been nice that I maybe found another organization that, instead of with the St. Louis, with another organization, is probably the only thing that I would have welcomed, of course.
Right.
And been like, cool, now I'm with the Rockies, or I'm with the Orioles or the Cubs, and who are rebuilding their brand or their teams. I wish I would have changed organizations faster. It's probably the only thing I could think of.
Glove of choice.
I don't know the model, but Rawlings. I use Rawlings my entire
Were you Heart
professional
of the
career.
Hide or Pro Preferred?
Let's see, Pro Preferred because it was softer leather. Heart of the Hide was the Kip leather. The Heart of the Hide was too stiff. I wanted a glove to work or to be able to be game ready in like a week.
Yep.
And that was Kip leather.
I get that. Funniest teammate you ever had?
Man, Gary Burnham might be in there. I'll tell you.
Another connection.
I know.
Gary Burnham.
Gary Burnham. He was hilarious.
We tried out for the reality baseball show together. The player, Cal Ripken.
That's so great. Great. No, he was a character. Bucky Jacobson was pretty funny. Played with him in Double-A. He was hilarious. And Prather was pretty good too. We had a great time off the field. But there's plenty of characters. Alan Bennis was hilarious.
Yeah.
He was really funny. But there's a handful.
Do you ever have dreams that you're playing anymore? Like you're still playing baseball?
Yeah, last night, Blake. I can't believe you asked that.
Wow.
I have a reoccurring, if you want to call it dream or nightmare.
I do too.
It's where, and this happens a couple times a year, and it's happened for 20 years. Where I'm preparing for this game. I'm getting ready. The game's about to start, and I literally can't find my glove, or I don't have my cleats, or I don't have I can't find my jersey, and then I find it, and then I'm ready, and then I never play. The game never starts for me.
We'll let a psychologist tackle that one.
Man, I have no idea. It just happened last night.
That's crazy. I remember writing this question down and being like, am I going to ask this? Is this too weird of a question?
It's true. Hey, it happens.
There we go. Most talented hitter you ever played with?
That's going to be an obvious one.
Mr. Two Holes?
Mr. Albert Pujols. Give me a break. He was incredible to watch. Not only perform on the field and how many just balls he would square up, but he was such a professional at the field, and when he did his work, he wasn't screwing around. And he took me aside once or twice in spring training, and I think I asked him, and we just went and did some drills. What is his pre-game, or what is his tee routine, whether it's in season or not. And, he broke it down, and I used these drills. I used modified drills. Obviously I tried to adopt them when I was playing, but, I've tried to teach not only the Steve Balboni drills that we did, or that I learned from him, but also the Albert Pujols drills, that I've tried to modify for some of the players to at their level that they needed to accomplish. But I'll never forget those. And, I've heard him talk about it on Instagram. I've seen some videos of things, and I'm like, that's what we talked about. So it's really kind of cool. It's been very consistent.
That's awesome.
Over the years. Yeah.
Pujols. Wow. What do you miss most about the game as a player?
Obviously being on the team and just playing at the highest level is what I miss. I miss performing, and I miss, I do miss playing in St. Louis. There's nothing like wearing that uniform and then just being in the stadium and being in that city. I miss the recognition that comes with that. I miss I don't want to say status, because I'm not an egomaniac, but I just feel like that, and the crowd, of course, getting a hit or being around for a hit. Like I mentioned, Edmonds hitting that game 6, I think is that home run, to the walk-off home run to send us to game 7, I think is what it was. The sound will never leave my brain of the St. Louis fans, whether it's somebody else hitting it or me hitting something,
Yeah, that's so cool. I texted you about this. Is there anyone that you've come across with, that you played with, that you think would be good as a guest on this show? And then the second part to that is, if you could hear one person, kind of like a deep dive, like you just did, all-time baseball player, who would it be?
Man, the first part, I don't know. I thought about who could be next, and Kerry Robinson has a lot to talk about. I listened to his recording, and he's got a really good perspective, and he remembers a lot of details back then. He might be a good one. Scott Prather may be a good one too, because he and his brother and another one of their friends started a company, started a football analytics company for college football coaches called
He was talking about that.
Coaches by the Numbers. And I don't know if that's still going on, but I know that the selection committee was using that as their analytical kind of insight and data insight when for the football playoff, college football playoff. So that might be a really interesting baseball, but now a different sport kind of segue for you. Those might be two guys to reach out to.
All-time guest. All-time, like if you could say Mickey Mantle, you could say Mark McGwire, you could say.
Gosh, that is hard. I think in history, who would I want to sit and talk to?
Yeah,
man.
No. Who would you like to hear? If this was me doing it still, you get to listen to it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, another deep dive. I thought it was just one-on-one. I mean, Ozzy would be really good. That's kind of the same answer, where I've got to spend a lot of time with Ozzie Smith and hear him talk. But he gave me a piece of advice when I was playing in 2003. He gave me a piece of advice that I didn't take, and I kind of regret it. And I thought about it during our adventure here in our journey. I had dinner with him once, and
oh wow!
And so he said, "Bo, you need to get a journal. You need to get a journal, and you need to start writing down these things." And I'm not a big writer. I'm not a great writer at all. And I wish I had taken his advice.
Yeah.
Because I think there may be some parts where I would like to elaborate more on, even in this, podcast. But I wish I had done that, because that would have been nice to show my boys and read it to them, or have them read it when they're older. But you know what? The next best thing is actually talking about it. So here we are. So thanks, Blake.
Yeah, buddy. It's amazing.
It's been great. It's helped me through this for sure.
Are you recognized in Memphis?
No.
How recognized are you in St. Louis now?
If I'm in the stadium, if I'm around the stadium, there'll be some, people in their 60s and 70s that may remember me. But no, yeah, St. Louis, it's got to, I mean, it doesn't happen very often. So, but from time to time, that kind of thing.
Pimping home runs, celebrating strikeouts, yay or nay?
Nay, for sure.
Okay. Are you much of a reader? Have you read books?
I've read a handful of books. Yes.
Do you have like a favorite baseball book you've ever read or anything like that?
I read Calico Joe by John Grisham. I think John Grisham wrote that.
Okay.
It's kind of a story about a phenom that's coming up, and a veteran. So it's a veteran pitcher and this phenom position player setting all these records, and the veteran does something that derails the guy's success, and then later regrets it.
Okay, interesting.
So it's a good book, but it's a Grisham book.
I'll have to check that out. What are you most proud of in your career?
Most proud of, I played the same way every day.
Oh, man.
I think that's, if I can articulate it in one statement, I think I played the game right. I played it the same every day. And, I think I can live with myself saying that I gave it everything that I had to give to baseball, and whether at whatever level, regardless if I ever got to the big leagues or not, I would still have the same answer.
Man, that's all good, man. Do you think there are any? Oh, I guess this is a good one, and a couple more, and I'll wrap it up. You can have dinner with 3 former big leaguers, dead or alive. Who are they going to be? Oh, hey, puppy.
That's Duke. 3 big leaguers. I mean, shoot. let's go. Roland, Jim Edmonds, and Albert Pujols.
Boom.
Let's have a reunion. I think that would be
Done.
fun.
Love that.
or let's throw Wainwright and Yachty in there too, because they were my teammates from, in the minor leagues and the big leagues too, and they're great guys, and they're, again, I got to play with so many awesome baseball players and people.
You really
Like,
did.
let's go have dinner. My treat. Let's go.
Well, Bo, we're at the end of the line, my man. I can't believe we're here. This has been the craziest thing. I can remember getting the idea to get a hold of you, and getting a hold of you. Well, first of all, let me get you one last question. What did you think when I first got a hold of you? Were you like,
No, I mean, I've been asked to do, interviews and things over the years several times, and I think I was obviously just a little I wasn't sketched out. I wasn't, worried or anything like that. I thought you were real. I think I was like, okay, who is this guy? And again, I think I responded quickly because you mentioned Ryan, and that kind of broke the ice a little bit. So nice job. But no, I was honored that somebody wanted to talk about this, and after you telling me exactly kind of what your goal was, I was like, hell yeah, why would I not? This is a great opportunity for me. And again, I said it a couple of times when we've talked here. I really appreciate it because it's been awesome, and I hope I haven't left anybody out or any detail out. But when I listen to this, it's just going to bring back a lot of good memories, and I just appreciate you.
This has been such an incredible ride, man, and I could have never imagined how great this story was going to be, how cool it was going to be, how open you were going to be. It just like this sounds kooky, but I think you and I have been on a collision course for a long time, and we're finally here. I think this is one of the greatest baseball stories of all time. It's so cool. There's so many levels to it. There's so many layers to it. You got to experience this wild, one of one experience, top of the mountain, and then very quickly, life comes at you, and I'm sure you learned a lot about yourself along the way, on the way down and the way up, and I'm so thrilled that baseball, opened up. It kind of set you up for your life now. You met your wife in Memphis through this, your boys, you're still involved in the game. I would like to consider you a friend now. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Blake Helm, Bo Hart, we're boys. Me and you are boys for life now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude, this has been so cool. Just thank you so much for coming on and giving this legitimacy. And I really think in a year or two, you're going to be like, man, it was really cool to be on this, because it's going to keep growing. And I really hope that there are other players out there that hear this and want to be a part of it. I've already said there's a clip at the start of this. Email me, the postgame spread at Gmail. And if you want to be a part of this. So, Bo, this has been, just thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, this really has been a great therapeutic, way for me to talk about some things. And again, it's not all bitter. And I think I have a right to be at times, but I'm not bitter anymore. Totally. And it really, my journey, with your questions and this forum, it's been really good to just discuss and to talk about and to answer some questions a little bit deeper than I had in the past. And I know that was one of your goals. It's like, you always heard, like, you got 3 minutes in an interview to tell this story. And that I deserved, or not deserved, but needed more time to kind of break things down and to complete the story, so to speak. So I really appreciate it. We are buds for life, and this is we're obviously going to stay in touch. And I already feel, even not having listened to it, I already feel like this is, this was the best thing for me to do, to tell this story. And again, you did a great job, and
thanks,
I appreciate it. And really, for my boys to have, an opportunity to hear this, I've tried to keep it PG.
Absolutely.
I think there's a couple words in there, but it's perfectly fine. But I've tried to keep it PG for them so that they can listen to it. And I've had some other friends, text me and said, "Hey, I'm listening to this. This is incredible." And I just, it's something that I can have. I don't want to say the internet is forever, but it kind of is. And,
It is, yeah.
but I'm going to have this to reflect on, and I have you to thank for that. And this has been really good. And like I said, it's been therapeutic and,
Yeah.
and really, really good, experience for me. So I thank you.
I'd love to hear it. And we've got 2 clips to take us out. First is going to be Danny Schaefer on how you should be proud. And then the last one is a surprise. It's Noka. But I don't think you it's going to be a cool way to end it. So again, thank you everyone out there listening. Post-game spread. I'm going to play these clips, and we're going to cut it. But what a journey this has been. This has just been, wow. Thanks, man. All right, here we go.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
To where there was a need, that when there was a need, he answered the need. He can always look back and say, what if, but really you can't do that because he played at the major league level.
Absolutely.
And since the beginning of time with Major League Baseball, I think we're about 130 years into it right now.
Yeah.
There's only been 750,000 professional contracts and only 20,000 and since some change have ever played in the big leagues, and he's one of them. So he needs to be proud of that.
And there's probably a handful of funny stories, but I'm not going to remember those that well. I mean, I'll have to really get back to you on the funny ones. But
it's okay.
I mean, I think one of the other things that sticks out in my mind though is that when we were teenagers, I think I might have already been in college, and he might have been in high school at this point. And me and him and another buddy of ours from the neighborhood, we were out at night at a local park. We were literally just laying around on the jungle gym talking, and it was nighttime out in the park, and we were just friends hanging out, chitty-chatting about life. And we did this weird little exercise. This is like a little fantasy thing where we pretended to be ourselves in 15 years, 10 years, right? And we held a conversation among each other as if we were already living the careers and lives that we wanted to do, right? So Bo was like, I'm a Major League Baseball player, and I play for blah 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 blah. And he told us this whole story about what his life was like, and we all did it. We're like, I'm a Hollywood film director, and this other guy was like, I'm a radio talk show host, whatever. All the things that we wanted to be. Actually, I went home that night, and I told my dad, we just did this really fun thing. We just pretended to be ourselves in the future, doing what we wanted. And I remember my dad telling me that's actually. You think you were just goofing around, but honestly, that is a really powerful method of realizing your goals.
Thoughts are things, man. Thoughts are things.
Visualizing who you want to be. And
manifestation.
Training your brain. Yeah, it's realization. Yes, right. What did you call it?
Manifestation.
Manifestation. Exactly. Yeah. And without even realizing we were doing that, we were doing that, and so it's cool.
Wow.
I just want to impress upon people that are listening how important it is to visualize what you want to achieve and to see it in your mind, and then you never know, it could come true.